Are you searching for a deeper understanding of your faith?
Inspiring Philosophy is your go-to resource for exploring the rich tapestry of Christian thought.
From biblical archaeology to philosophy of mind, we dive into the topics that matter.
Our content bridges faith and understanding, offering insights into God's existence and the reliability of the New Testament.
Join a community where faith meets reason and discover the answers you've been seeking.
Inspiring Philosophy, where faith meets understanding.
Fool says in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, they have worked abominations. There is none who does good. The Lord looks down from the heavens on the sons of man to see if there are any who understand, who seek after God. There they are in great terror, for God is with the generation of the righteous. You have shamed the counsel of the humble and afflicted. But the Lord is his refuge. Oh, that salvation for Israel would come out of Zion when the Lord restores the captives of his people. Jacob shall rejoice and Israel be glad. They have all turned aside. Together they have become corrupt. There is none who does good, not even one. Have they no knowledge? All the wicked that devour my people, as they feast, they do not call upon the Lord. There they are in great terror, for God is with the generation of the righteous. You have shamed the counsel of the humble and afflicted. Oh, but the Lord is his refuge. Oh, that salvation for Israel would come out of Zion when the Lord restores the captives of his people. Jacob shall rejoice and Israel be
All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone, for this exciting call-in show on the Resurrection. We've been asked to do this one multiple times. So who's excited?
I'm very excited. Still
You don't
sick,
sound excited.
but
You
no,
sound
I am. I just don't show
awful.
emotions.
Pretty lame. So, all right, everyone, this is how this is going to work. I am going to give a short 10-minute presentation just on defending the resurrection, so we know our basis. We also have the claim to meet, and so I'm going to just present a little bit of data arguing for it. Simple, nothing too complicated, and then we get into start discussing this. So let me dive in and do that to start, and then we will take in our first guest, because I think it's only fair that if we're going to argue for debate about the resurrection, we should at least make the case for it first, and then just instead of trying to put the entire burden on somebody else. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's a short presentation I can give. Let's start with the cultural background. So no Jewish messianic movement ever claimed their Messiah died and rose, and that proved they were the Messiah and also God. We know about Judas the Galilean, Simon, Theudas, the Egyptian prophet, Simon Bar Giora, a bunch of bunch of people, but only the Christians said their Messiah, Jesus, rose to atone for the sins of the world. So we have a historical conundrum. Jesus dies in 33 AD, so we know that happened. The disciples are proclaiming Jesus resurrected shortly after the crucifixion. So what happened? How do we go from Jesus being crucified and dying to the disciples proclaiming that he rose from the dead? So gospel reliability, that's a separate issue. We have a series on that if you want to do that. So how do we get to that point? Let's talk about that. So scholars, even skeptical scholars, will acknowledge that the disciples experienced something. Okay. Bart Ehrman says, I don't doubt at all that some disciples claim this. Paul, writing about 25 years later, indicates that this is what they claimed. And I don't think he's making it up. Paula Fredrickson says they must have seen something. I know in their own terms, what they saw was the raised Jesus. Okay. So skeptical scholars will agree that the disciples saw something that convinced them Jesus rose from the dead. Now, we have several sources of the accounts of people claiming to see Jesus risen from the dead. It's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, 1 Corinthians, Josephus, early sermons in Acts as well. The claims are that Jesus appeared to many people he knew for long periods of times in multi-sensory forms. The dates of the claims are within the eyewitnesses' lifetimes, so that's important as well. We have the creed in 1 Corinthians, which scholars date very, very early. I believe Kurt Ludemann dates it to within like 2 years of Pentecost. Gerald O'Collins says he doesn't know of anybody who dates it past the 30s. So very early creed proclaiming Jesus rose from the dead. Michael Licona notes it's widely accepted today that the tradition goes back to the Jerusalem church. So there's widespread agreement. It was composed very early and may very well be the oldest extant tradition pertaining to the resurrection of Jesus. So we also know that skeptics like James and Paul converted. So this wasn't just people that were biased. People that rejected Jesus and his claims to be the Messiah converted and started proclaiming the resurrection. Now, the idea that they could have hallucinated all this is addressed by psychologist Nick Meter in his book on the resurrection. He says, feeling a sense of presence of the dead during bereavement is common. However, more specific perception-like experience is lower. So you can see this, you have tactical, visual, auditory, verbal. Experiences in a single modality appear more common than in multimodalities. Okay. For example, visual and hearing, very much even lower. All estimates were associated with considerable uncertainty. In particular, verbal quasi-sensory experiences ranged from 4 to 70%. So what the basic point is that when people hallucinate, they tend to just experience one thing. They heard something or they saw something. They don't experience multisensory forms, but that's what the appearances of Jesus seem to indicate in our earliest and most reliable sources. Jesus is speaking with them, and so they're seeing and hearing him. This is even in the early sermons and Acts that have that Aramaic structure that people like F.F. Bruce have pointed to. Meter says most non-clinical participants are aware they are not perceiving real sights or sounds. Okay, so even people that are hallucinating, they realize these are not real. So it's very unlikely hallucinations would convince someone actually rose from the dead. No matter how vivid such visions may be, to the extent that some people behave in response to them, reality testing seems preserved, at least in the absence of conditions such as pathological grief, reactions, subthresholds, or overt psychiatric neurological disorders. So people tend to, not only it's rare to have multisensory experiences, they tend to know they're hallucinating. This also appears to be the case in other non-clinical populations. For example, Toe and colleagues found that only 13% of non-clinical individuals were strongly convinced their quasi-sensory experiences were real. So very, very low. Peer-reviewed work on hallucinations also reports that most often manifest in one sensory mode, such as auditory or visual, then multimodal hallucination. And multimode hallucinations are exceptionally rare. So not only do we have Jesus appearing to groups of people, they're multisensory, and they were convinced this was what Jesus rose from the dead, that Jesus rose from the dead. It's very unlikely that someone is going to come up with the idea that he rose from the dead on this. All early reports tell us the tomb was discovered by women, an embarrassing fact for the early church. Notice it's not even in the early creed that the women discovered it. And this was used to attack Christians, like by people like Celsus, for example. N.T. Wright notes this is just something no one in that culture would have made up. It's great historical evidence for us today, but not so much in that culture. All the early reports tell us the tomb was found empty, discovered by women. It's an embarrassing fact. The Sanhedrin didn't have the body, and they made up the story that the disciples stole it. We see this in the dialogue with Trypho. They're still telling people this. This was Passover as well. The city was flooded with pilgrims. It's very hard to sneak out a body. Also, the Jerusalem disciples proclaimed the resurrection there early when the enemies of Jesus would add the means and the motives to debunk it. Fakers go elsewhere. They go to the desert or out to Utah. You know, we also know that, of course, we're not going to defend the idea that all the disciples were martyred, but there is evidence of early voluntary suffering for this belief, which is very unlikely if they were making it up. So what we have to posit to avoid a resurrection, the disciples experience a multimodal group hallucinations, which are exceptionally rare. Never documented multimodal group hallucinations in the research. This happened for the women at the tomb and for the disciples. So these multimodal group hallucinations had to happen more than once. Then skeptics like James and Paul also experienced something which caused them to convert. So, and then they made up a story of women discovering the tomb, which would also have been very, very unlikely. They came up with a belief that was completely unlike what they believed in their cultural background. So they developed some weird idea that no one was expecting with regards to the coming of the Jewish Messiah. They claimed this in the very place where their enemies had the means and the motives to debunk them, and then they voluntarily suffered for the claim, and the tomb was most likely found empty. So that is the basic outline of the case for the resurrection. Anything you want to add to that, Than?
No. I'm sure things will come up. The things that I would add, I'm sure they will come up as we discuss with people.
And by the way, what we're saying is that we're not denying people can come up with natural explanations. We're saying that when you do that, you make explanations that are ad hoc, can account for all the data without positing additional assumptions. And ultimately, the resurrection is the most parsimonious explanation of the available data. So that is the claim we are making. So let's do some super chats, and then we'll bring in our first guest here. Speak on James' brother of Jesus, why he was killed. Yeah, because he was preaching Christianity, and this is why he was martyred. It's kind of odd. He would die. It was false. Don't forget to like the stream. I'm not going to say those vulgar first comments. How dare you, sir? Than is so inspiring in the intro with mi hermano. Looks like he never left the cigar cartel. That's true. It's true. Don't talk about.
Why are you talking about my criminal history, man? Come on.
What if someone like Malik finds out? I mean, come on. It was actually Jesus' twin brother who was crucified, not Jesus. You see? Yeah, that would be something. So talk about getting ad hoc. Than's looking so good. It's basically a thirst trap. You are so freaking. Who are these fans you keep luring in and doing this?
Hey, man, look, it's not my fault. People want more of the OnlyFans content.
All right. Well, I don't because I'm normal. Anyway, we're going to take our first guest in. This is Paul. Paul, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
we can hear you. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I'm guessing you're not a Christian or you don't believe in the resurrection?
Well, yeah. So I've actually been on here before. We talked about. I think we talked about maybe the reliability of the Gospels. It was a little while ago, but
Okay.
I would describe myself as more of a skeptical. I'm leaning towards being a Christian, but I'm very skeptical.
All right. So what is holding you back from that?
I guess so. Like specifically, since your topic is the resurrection, I guess I would say something that really holds me back about believing in the resurrection is, like you said in your intro, that, and I agree with you that it, based on the available evidence, it is the most parsimonious explanation. But I think that it's the fact that it's possible that, I mean, I guess anything's possible, but the fact that it's possible that that's not what happened, the fact that it's possible that it might not have, something else could be the explanation, and then given the fact that I think, at least personally, and I could have my mind changed on this, but, you know, that Jesus himself was a Jew and that he was practicing Judaism, and this is not like an anti-Jew thing. That's not the point. The point is,
I love the fact that you have to clarify that. I get it. You're good, bro.
But yeah, basically, like, the fact that he believed in a lot of the stuff of the well, at least it seemed as though like he believed in taking the stories of the Old Testament literally, like Moses and Noah, and a lot of these things and certain things that I find either morally problematic in the Old Testament or just factually untrue, like some of the stories that I guess you could get around by saying, like, I know that the Catholics believe that there's some catechism that says that that God allowed for kind of human writing and human error almost in the writing, but it was divinely guided. But
Yeah.
from what I see, it seems like Jesus himself believed and took those stories literally, and I find them to just not be, based on the evidence that we do have, I find them to be,
So, like, what story?
Yeah.
like, for example, I guess just the Exodus in general. I actually just finished reading Exodus in its entirety not too long ago, and I find it highly likely to be mythologized at best.
So, have you seen my series Exodus Rediscovered?
No, I haven't.
So, this is a series I did. It's 3 parts: Exodus Rediscovered, Exodus the Wandering Period, and Exodus Rediscovered the Conquest. And I go through and I lay out all the evidence for the Exodus. Let me just put up a graph here that I have towards the end. So I go through all of the data that we have for the Exodus. Okay, this is all the archaeological data we have. We have the Bible says Israel settled in the city around Avaris. Well, we have a Semitic population there. Then we have evidence that they were shepherds. The population was enslaved. We have Manfred B. Tech talks about evidence. No pig bones were found at that site. And then we know during the Ramesside period, so the time of Ramesses, that site was abandoned. That Semitic site was abandoned, and they used the site for a giant graveyard. About 40 years later or so, there is a population explosion in Canaan. This is acknowledged by Finkelstein, Deaver, even people that deny the Exodus. There was this population explosion, and they have a difficult time explaining that. Meanwhile, the Merneptah stele is confirming Israel is in Canaan at that point. We see new settlements that are lacking pig bones. Shiloh is resettled. A small cultic site is found on Mount Ebal around 1220 BC, for example. We find a standing stone at Shechem. We find a bunch of sites. Hazor was burned fiery. Even the latest reports on Jericho are now aligning with the biblical record. Reports that just came out in 2020 and 2023. So my pushback would be like, maybe, I don't think it was like 2 million Jews. I think those are exaggerated or symbolic numbers because that was common in the Torah. But I do think there was a population of Semitic people that left Egypt and resettled in Canaan. And I think that too. Make a strong case for that.
I think that too. I'm not denying that, but I think that to take the stories as they're told in the Bible, literally, like I don't find any issue with believing that there was a mass exodus of the Jewish people around that time period, and a lot of the details of the story.
So then is it the stories about God doing miracles like parting the Red Sea?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, like, if God exists and he raised Jesus from the dead, what would be so improbable about him acting in other places in history?
Nothing. That there wouldn't be, and I follow that logic. I get what you're saying, but is there evidence that happened? Is there actual conclusive evidence? I mean, you have to find. I guess you don't have to find, but there should at least be pretty convincing evidence to me of a lot of these miracle or supernatural stories.
Yeah. So are you? Let me ask you a clarifying question.
Sure.
And it's not a gotcha. I'm just I haven't said much because I'm trying to basically just get a conceptualization of like the framework you're kind of working from. That's all. Are you making the strong claim basically that a lot of these events that the Old Testament talks about, there's no good evidence for them and they didn't happen, and then you go from that to saying that Jesus endorses that these events happened? If Jesus is God and rose from the dead, he wouldn't endorse something that didn't happen, and that's somehow evidence against it?
Well, I guess in a logical sense, on one hand, I guess it's not really what I'm saying because I've thought about that before, and I don't necessarily think. Good.
I'm sorry. I'm just before you. I feel like a dick for cutting you off there. The only reason I'm asking is because in order to actually help you move past these concerns you have, we need to understand like the structure of reasoning that's going on that actually creates the concern in the first place, right? That, and if you just don't have that right now, that's totally fine. We can work through it together. I'm just trying to figure that out. That's all.
Yeah, so I think that, yeah, and I've had that thought before of okay, well, if these events didn't happen and Jesus believed or claimed that they did happen, then how could he be God? Um, because he either A, believes something that's not true, or B, is, I guess, endorsing a lie. But I guess, from when I've read the Gospels, it didn't necessarily seem as though he was treating the stories as if they were literally true, um, and more seemed to quote them for teaching purposes,
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
One of my favorite examples is actually with Jonah. Because Jesus says, just as Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights, so too will the Son of Man be in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, blah, blah, blah. And then, and he says, but a greater sign than Jonah is here. And then he talks about himself, right?
Mhm.
And Mike, I think you agree with my reading of Jonah about with the chaos dragon and all that.
Yeah, so we don't actually think Jonah was swallowed by a literal fish, and we don't make
Oh.
that claim from like modern
Right.
science. We make the claim that like the actual ancient reading of it is that they treat the ocean as like Leviathan, and which they call the great fish, that swallowed him up. He actually died, went down to Sheol, and then was resuscitated. And this is what is taught in Jonah 2, talking about him going down to the pit and being swallowed up forever and then being released.
Yeah. And so when Jesus is quoting this, he's quoting this for didactic purposes to highlight, hey, something greater is here, by the way. He's saying effectively, Jonah, God conquered death on Jonah's behalf. Something greater than that's about to happen. I will conquer death, right? And effectively claiming to be God.
Right.
Now, I'm going to put that over here for a second, and then I'm going to make another analogy just to kind of help, because I'm a father, and I like to use Dragon Ball Z to teach my kids life lessons.
Nope.
And so I actually just had to do this with my son today. He's like old enough where he can hurt his little brothers and everything. And I told him like, hey man, look, I get that you're getting stronger now, all this other stuff, but just like Goku, when he's training and getting stronger so he can protect people, right? He's not he's not training to be super strong just to hurt people. Am I endorsing a literal understanding that Goku exists or anything like that when I do that?
No,
or a lie?
Actually.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we have to be really careful with how we're interpreting Jesus in a lot of places, because I think the Second Temple and early Israelite context of the Hebrew Bible is going to help us understand what Jesus is probably interpreting and how he's interpreting the text. And then we also have to look at the immediate textual context of who Jesus is talking to and what his rhetorical goals are when he's doing something, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that does make sense, and that helps a lot with that. And then, so I guess the other side of the same coin, though, would be kind of the moral concerns that I have, and I don't want to sound arrogant, obviously, because I don't want to say, "Oh, I know better than God."
I get it, man.
What I will say is that for example, when we look at Islam and we see things that like Muhammad did, and I love the debates and stuff, and saying like one of my favorites is when you guys say like Muslims themselves are better than Muhammad and make that claim, and I agree. But on the same token, can't you kind of say this like for example, in I believe either Exodus or Numbers, I think it was Exodus, when God, or maybe it was Numbers, when God is like, giving, or maybe it was Moses, but saying,
Are you just talking about just basic violence in the Old Testament stuff?
basic violence, but but commands of violence from God, and also like when he kills firstborns, right? The firstborns in Exodus, because Pharaoh, like he hardens Pharaoh's heart, and then blah blah blah, and innocent people suffer, and also not to mention like just other basic story, like the flood, for example. the wrath of him to annihilate everybody, which would include, children, babies, infants, whatever. Like
Okay.
that seems. Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Okay, let me ask you this question, and this isn't to sidestep the concerns you have because I think they're valid concerns. Um, but I want to ask this to see just kind of where things are at. So just imagine that you have these concerns about whether or not the things Jesus endorses are true and moral, right?
Mhm.
Are those the two big categories that you're concerned about?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
so.
So if we get to the point that we are able to explain the war texts and violent passages in the Old Testament in such a way that it actually alleviates those concerns, what does that do for your probability assessment for this idea that Jesus rose from the dead?
I mean, that's huge for me because for me,
Okay.
the biggest thing was always just I just had such a struggle with being like, okay, Jesus, he is
No, I
born
totally
into
get
this
it.
world and he believes in this religion that I find, when taken literally and taken at face value, is problematic. And so, and I think Christianity is great. I think the new covenant is amazing. But for him to have been part of the religion of the old covenant has always been a struggle for me. So,
Yeah.
those concerns could be.
I don't, Mike. I don't know if you want to go down that path or not. Just because of the topic today. But Paul, I'll say this: if you have a Discord server, if you have a Discord name or anything like that, you should join our server.
Okay.
Dude, I'm more than happy to dig into the weeds with you on all of that. Like,
that'd be
here's
great.
that is
here's a
my
help-
jam.
Let me give you a helpful analogy. Like this is something that kind of helped me. So like we do look at the Bible as it is presenting moral progress. Like Genesis 1-11 narrates the fall of humanity. They just keep going in worse and worse directions. Things keep getting worse. And then the call of Abraham is the beginning of the call back. We wouldn't expect God to be able to give them a perfect moral law. And so when we go to like the Torah, for example, God is like, okay, here, let's just do simple. Stop worshiping other gods. Okay, can you do that? And they couldn't even do that. So we expect God to give them like a perfect moral law. Unlikely. So I use this analogy. Let's say the world of Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings, was different. Let's say the orcs actually successfully annihilated all the races. But in the mythology of Lord of the Rings, the orcs are actually elves. They just are fallen. They fell into such evil ways, tortured by Morgoth, the mythology. So they're actually elves. What if Tolkien, who's really the god of the world, wanted to create a world where he was going to eventually turn them back into elves, but not by forcing them, but by trying to make them want to become elves again? We would expect moral progress to be needed. The first thing you'd be like, okay, you guys just stop mutilating yourselves. Can you stop enslaving other, we would start small. Okay, do this, start to move them along kind of stuff. And what's that?
That's a crazy analogy. That's actually really good.
Thank you.
I was trying to find a book that talks about this stuff, but I don't know
you
where
get
it is.
kind of the idea. Like it's the same thing with when we deal with people today. Like what's going on in Saudi Arabia? We want them to give women equal rights. They're like, no, but notice what has sort of happened. Let them drive. Let them have passports. Let them leave the house without a male escort. And those things are happening. And slowly but surely, we are trying to move them along. We would expect God to do the same thing. And the funny thing is that even when he gives them the Torah, they can't even keep that. Like, it's just like the prophets just keep showing up going, yeah, you're not keeping the Passover. Yeah, you're not keeping. But could you just stop worshiping other gods? No. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I think
and Jesus,
moral progress throughout history is the issue.
And Jesus himself, mind you, actually endorses this sort of a ethical reading of the Torah. Because when he's addressing people in Matthew, I think it is, he says Moses gave you a certificate of divorce, but he gave this to you because of the hardness of your heart, right? And so just going off of what Mike said, the technical term here is called the redemptive ethic hermeneutic. And the basic idea is, like Mike said, there's an ethical trajectory, right? There's another way to think about this, like lines of scrimmage, the Edenic ideal, or like the heavenly ethical ideal, right, is the end zone. And God is taking us from the 5-yard line, the 10-yard line, moving the lines of scrimmage slowly but surely, as he interacts with humanity. And a really good book to read, especially on Old Testament violence, is by a scholar named Matthew Lynch. He wrote a book called Flood and Fury. And I would add in a few other things with other scholars on this, but the basic idea is like, if we had the time to unpack all of this with you right now, my position is that when you actually read the Old Testament within its proper context and the rhetorical goals in mind, you come out with the conclusion that it's very anti-war, very anti-humans taking violence into their own hands.
We actually had
and God
Joel
is very
Greco,
against this.
We had Joel Greco on the channel in June to talk about this. That the whole point of this, the narrative up through Joshua, is that God is saying humans should not be doing this. And that's a bold claim, but just maybe check that out and you'll see what we mean and how he sort of unpacks that. But
this is kind of crude, Paul, but I'll just bring this point up. And it's crude because it's it's a true observation, but also I bring this up because it's going to like hit you hard and it's going to like land the plane a little bit here, probably for you. Okay. The first mention of a weapon in these texts happens before any battles actually start. The first mention of a weapon is before any battle starts. And I forget who it is off the top of my head, but one of the patriarchs actually, they circumcise themselves before any battle happens.
Abraham. Yeah.
Does that sound like something you would want to do with a flint sword before you start fighting a bunch of people?
No. Nope.
I bring this up, right? Because that's a huge contextual clue as to what the texts are really about, right? Mm-hmm. The true battle is Torah observance and the worship of Yahweh, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense.
I think you're thinking of my mistake, but anyway, continue.
But yeah, I could talk. I love this topic. That's why I'm saying like you should definitely join our Discord server.
Yeah, I'm on that Discord server. Yeah.
And we can talk about this. I will say this. Everybody listening right now, if you're in our Discord server, if he joins and I find you guys hassling him because you just all want to go debate me bro mode, I'll fight you. Okay, so stop. Paul, just tell people I told you to come here and to not be mean to you. And if they're mean to you, I'll punch them. Okay.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then so I mean that's cool, and I'll definitely do that. Because I definitely have tons of questions about going into specific stories and things like that, and analyzing that stuff. So if you're willing, whenever you're around,
I'd love to.
And then one more thing I wanted to mention too, and I kind of touched on this really early, like when I started, was so, and this is more pertaining to the resurrection because I know that's your topic.
Yeah, I hope me saying let's talk on Discord about the war tech stuff, you didn't take that as dismissive. I'm just trying to.
No. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just get back to the topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, and what I kind of said was, if it's, I guess not possible because it is anything's possible, like I said, but if there's a world where everything that we see is exactly how it is, we have the Gospels, we have the evidence that we do have from whoever, from Josephus, from whoever, Talmudic sources, even hostile sources. Even if we have all of that, if there's a world where it is at least a little bit logical that the resurrection didn't happen, even if the most parsimonious explanation is that it did based on the evidence, wouldn't it just make more sense, even if we're not using some sort of philosophical veto against miracles, to say that it probably didn't happen?
Can I do annoying math stuff?
Sure. Yeah, anything.
If you make it quick, because we do need to move on soon. But
okay. Yeah. Sorry. So no. Paul, are you familiar with probability theory or like confirmation theory, philosophy of science, or anything like that?
No.
Okay. If I'm understanding you correctly, maybe this will be helpful, right? When we're talking about the probability of any certain hypothesis being true, that's going to be depending on how you do the math, right? It's going to be the ratio of the prior probability of the hypothesis and its negation or some other competing theory multiplied by the probability of the evidence given the hypothesis divided by the probability of the evidence given the competing theory, right? So prior probability, and then the other thing that I mentioned is called the likelihood ratio. Okay. So your question basically is asking this: if we say something like the probability, the evidence that we have given Christianity being true is really high, and the probability of the evidence we have given Christianity being false is really low, isn't it still more rational to say that the actual like posterior probability or the actual probability of Christianity being true is still really low relative to it being false?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is only going to be yes, if you can, for some reason, think that the prior probability of Christianity being false is so high that the force of the evidence is not strong enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I see
Okay.
what you're saying.
So there's going to be a few answers to that. One is going to be, why should we think that the prior probability is really low? Right?
Yep.
Because you even said if we get rid of any anti-miracle filters or anything like that, right? So that's a conditional you're kind of granting there. Apart from that, then, like, why should we think that the prior probability is low?
Yeah, that's something that I have thought before as well. If you allow for some sort of possibility of not even like a probability, but a possibility of miracles, then based on the evidence, what does that give? The probability that the resurrection occurred, and that's what I'm asking. You know what I mean? Like, what is the probability, and how do we reach that? And yeah, no, this is all. I mean, I could tell Mike is kind of like he wants to move on. But I could.
No, I just want to. It's not you. We just do have a lot of guests we got to get.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful.
I like to talk about math, and whenever I start talking about math, Mike's like, "Oh my gosh."
Well,
I love
talking about math too, and so I mean, honestly, yeah, I just. Along with the other stuff, I could just hop in the Discord too. I mean, whenever you're available, because I really like these conversations, and I do really feel really close. I mean, I love everything about Christianity. It's just accepting that it's true is the biggest barrier for me.
So I'll say two things. One, definitely join the Discord server, because then, and I say this humbly. I'm not saying this like in a weird way, right? Like, I think there's a lot of stuff that you need to learn about epistemology and stuff like that in order to help you. What?
I don't even know what that is, so I agree.
Oh, theory of knowledge stuff. How do you know things? What is not? Stuff like that. Which is directly tied to the math stuff that I was even talking about too.
Okay.
Right, because like stuff like that is going to be really important for you to help you figure out what's true and what's not. And I think if we can have some more one-on-one time to talk about this kind of stuff, it'd be really helpful. And two, as you're trying to figure this out, if you're not against becoming a Christian, you want to do it, and you love Christianity, all this other stuff, for your own sake, I would implore you to actually start going to church and practicing the faith. And wherever you go, if it's a Catholic, Orthodox church, or like a Protestant church, talk to the leaders there and be like, hey, I don't believe this yet, but I want to become a Christian. Can I? And just tell them, like, I'm still trying to figure out a few things, but I want to like start being involved in the community and doing Christian things. I can explain the psychology and all that stuff there. It's not dishonest to do that. I actually think it's going to be a really important step for you if you want.
Yeah, actually, so yeah, I was an atheist for a while, and actually my girlfriend started taking me to her. She's a non-denominational. She's a bit more of a Christian fundamentalist, Bible literalist, but still just going to church and just having that experience and talking to the pastor has been really helpful. And it's actually why I'm even here in the first place, and it's why I'm exploring these things and so open to it now, where I would have been very adamantly against it just not too long ago. So
yeah, awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, please keep doing that for sure.
Yeah, I will. And I appreciate that, guys. And yeah, I'll join the Discord, and I'll keep going to church and practicing the faith, like you said. I appreciate that, man. Thanks so much.
All right. Appreciate you, Paul. Nice meeting you, man.
You as well.
All right, let's move to our next guest here. Kashif, can you hear me?
Hello, Mike. Hello, Than. How are you?
Hey, how's it going? Good. How are you, brother?
Good. What is your religious view?
Oh, first, forgive me for my bad English. So English is my second language.
No problem.
You're good, bro.
So I don't believe in resurrection because I don't believe in miracles at first place. The reason I don't believe in miracles is because I think there is a philosophical reason, because I think miracles can't happen. So I give my reasons why it can't happen.
Sure. Yeah, what are the
So
reasons
there
miracles
was
can't happen?
so I was watching this YouTube channel, Philosophy Overdose, playlist on epistemology, and in one of the videos, the professor discusses the limitation of deductions. So when I watched that video, I thought that this can also be applied to miracles. So I wrote a small article uh, on that professor lecture. Why can't miracles happen? So this is written by me. If you don't mind, I can read it loud.
Is the professor you're talking about Larry Shapiro?
I don't remember the name actually,
Okay, that's fine.
but
Well, I mean, like, what? How would you define a miracle?
a miracle is like suspension of natural law.
So we're going to disagree right there. We're not going to define a miracle as a suspension of natural law. We're gonna define it as an outside agent doing something that is not in accord with natural laws. But like the problem is like if you're going to say that, you need to show that natural laws would exclude that sort of thing happening. And I don't think the definition of miracles can meet that, if that makes sense.
Correct. Wait, Kashif, is that how you say your name?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I didn't want to mispronounce it. Are you making the
no
claim
problem.
that because there's two different claims you could be making here based off what I'm hearing. Are you making the claim that miracles cannot happen, or are you making the claim that belief in any miracle events cannot be justified?
So basically, I'm saying if you believe in miracle, then there are problems. There are external problems, like you can't do deduction or other logical things like induction and deduction if you believe in
Well,
miracle. So
well,
this
why
is my
not?
claim.
That I don't know if that would follow, because you can still do deduction based. I mean,
So I wrote an article. If you, it's a small article. If you have time, I can read it out. It take 2 or 3 minutes.
well, hold on. We're just, let's just talk this through. I think that'd be much better, and especially better
Can
for the
you
audience. To just
can
listen
you
to
put the
you
article
say.
in the side chat too, so I could just have it for my own
Yeah, you
notes
can just put it
anyway?
in the side chat. But I mean, like, here, if I'm going to give you a definition of a miracle, it's when an outside agent of the natural world inserts or changes something in the system the natural world could not bring about through its own regularity. And so that's what we would say a miracle is, not this idea that it's a suspension of natural laws. Now, we can still do deduction. We can still make a deduction that, for example, an outside agent has done a miracle, because logic would transcend the natural world. It would still apply regardless if a divine being did something or if the natural world continued on. I don't see how that would follow that we wouldn't get deduction from it.
So I paste that in chat. If you don't mind, you can read it.
So religious people cannot use arguments for the existence of God that rely on deduction, because deduction itself depends on general premises that are ultimately derived from induction. For example, every man is mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. In premise A, you're actually relying on inductive reasoning, since you're generalizing from experience. Every man you see is mortal, so you conclude that all men are mortal. However, if you believe in miracles, you cannot make such universal generalizations, because miracles represent exceptions to the rule. For example, in the Bible, there is a character, Melchizedek, who is described as immortal. Well, it's debatable. This shows that if you accept the possibility of miracles, you undermine the universality required for deduction. Therefore, you cannot coherently use deductive reasoning to prove the existence of God while
Yeah.
also believing in miracles. Go
So
ahead,
I disagree with this argument, but the thing is, I can actually grant it and say, so what? Because at least for me, I view everything within the lens of probability, and I don't actually like using deductive arguments for theism or anything like that. It's one of the really annoying things about me that people, both Christians and atheists alike, and Muslims, don't like dealing with me about, because I do everything in the terms of probability theory. So like I can
So
actually even
Stan,
grant. Yeah.
So Stan, I have a question for you. I think you believe in Bayesian epistemology. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So you can't say that you believe 100% in God in Bayesian epistemology.
Yep.
That's very like strange to hear that.
I can sympathize with it being strange to you, like sociologically speaking, because a lot of people probably aren't really willing to say something like that because it feels taboo.
Mm,
But if you go into like the philosophical literature, the predominant method actually that's used within philosophy of religion, um, from Christians, atheists alike, is like a Bayesian method. I'm really good friends with Graham Oppie, Paul Draper, people like that, um, and they're all gonna kind of catch things out in terms of Bayesianism.
mm. So then I joined your Discord, but your moderator were very rude to me, so they also kicked me.
Who, wait, what did they do to you? Sorry.
So they kicked me.
Um, are you the person that called in last week and talked about this?
Yeah, I am the same person.
Yeah. I'm not going to discuss. Yeah, I'm not going to discuss why publicly that happened. But if you want to talk privately, you can shoot me a DM and just remind me of who you are in the DM. But yeah, for your own privacy and everything, I'm not going to say why you got banned. But we can talk about it if you want to talk about it.
Sure, no problem.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't mind actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I just real quick with regards to this argument. I mean, again, it doesn't logically follow because rules of deduction are rules of logic, not rules of nature. So if a miracle is just a violation, yet how
Yes,
would that not
please
be
finish.
the case?
So, according to me, I think deduction is comes from induction, and without induction, you can't properly use deduction. And induction gets damaged when you believe in miracle.
Okay, but induction is just about you're seeing so many things, so you make an inductive inference,
Right.
basically.
But
I mean, it's about generalizing. Just because
Right.
you can generalize, that doesn't mean that that's going to always apply. This is the problem of induction. You know, it's the what is it? I think Bertrand Russell made this analogy. Just because the rooster sees the farmer coming and he knows every day prior to that he's going to get fed, that doesn't mean that's going to happen. This could be the day he gets his head chopped off. I mean, you cannot.
Also,
Induction is just a general.
right. The other thing is that Bayesianism answers this problem already. Right. Because induction is not going to just be, at least if you take my interpretation of probability theory, induction's not going to just be the statistical frequency of some sort of event, right? That's not what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to a few different types of probability, and then you're going to break that into questions about like prior probability and likelihood ratios, right? So like, I'll start here to make things simple. Just suppose Mike and I knew each other our whole lives, and I hugged Mike every single day. All right. But tomorrow, I go to a different state or something like that, and Mike has asked the question, is Than going to hug you today? Does it break induction for him to go no?
so this problem is first, I think, arrived in human science of human. This is first identified by Hume, David Hume, the problem of induction, I guess. So I think it sounds that very weird that if the past will resemble the future, but I think in science we have to believe in induction for the science to work, because we don't believe that law of gravity would stop working right now, or any type of law would stop working right now.
Yeah, but this is the problem. This is the problem, right? Because like, I can say something like, given Bayesian epistemology, right? I can say something like the prior probability that if I throw a rock at Mike's head, his skull will implode because I'm so strong, is really high, right? But then suppose that after the fact, I have this evidence that it didn't happen, and then there's a voice from the heavens that says, Than, why would you ever do this? Mike is my chosen elect one, or something like that, right? That opens up this idea that a miracle just happened, right? And so the force of the evidence overrode the force of the prior probability in that instance.
I think I'm not psychologically uh, capable of accepting Bayesian epistemology.
Well, I mean, like, the general inference of that still rules. Induction doesn't rule out exceptions to the rule. Like, you can have induction, but you can never use induction to rule out exceptions at the end of the day. Like, this is the problem. Induction is just something we observe in terms of regularity. We observe these regularities in nature. That doesn't mean there can't be exceptions. That's taking the law of induction far further than what it's able to even grant.
But if we don't, then the entire scientific philosophy of science would be like discarded.
No, it wouldn't.
No,
Because
philosophy of science, especially right now, is moving towards a Bayesian framework, and they've largely left out Popperian interpretations of confirmation. Duhem Quine has taken over again. The underdetermination of theory by evidence is extremely prevalent again. Yeah.
And like, you look at
So-
like Emery Lacatose, he notes that science is really built on research programs. You have degenerative and progressive research program. So it's not really that this idea of that these binding things that are not ever interfered with. This is outdated view of science.
Yeah, like, and another thing is that for you to believe in miracles, you first have to believe in like any type of god and supernatural entity which do these irregularities. Without
So then
believing in,
if you were to
Right,
believe in a God, would you believe that miracles are possible? Like if you were convinced that a God exists, would you believe in that?
I have to look different type of epistemology model, like what Hannah said, Bayesian epistemology, and how philosophy of science can reconcile a different model.
Yeah,
Well,
I
then
would definitely start with, like, if you just want heavy hitters on this stuff, Tim and Lydia McGrew have a book called Internalism and Epistemology or something like that, I think. Richard Swinburne has a lot of books on epistemology that I would recommend.
Yeah, why don't you check
yeah.
some of those books out? Come back to us. We'll talk to you in the future. Appreciate you
So-
coming again today.
Okay, Mike.
We're gonna
Okay,
need to
thank
move
you.
on though. But yeah, thanks for coming, man. So we're getting way off topic.
Yeah,
But,
sorry.
yeah, no problem. It's related, so we can talk about it. But Ron says, sorry, Takshi, I guess is how you pronounce it. Finally, I catch a stream. Greetings from Romania. I'm a Romanian dude. You two make me realize I want to pursue a more formal education of philosophy. God bless. Definitely do that. Definitely do that. What's with all the Collins shows you and other Christians have been doing lately? Have you found them helpful in reaching out to people?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's why we're doing them. 100%. That's why. I believe the major obstacles for most skeptics are epistemological, assuming Hume's argument is invincible, the truth of frequentism, or that all testimonies for miracle are qualitatively equal. Thoughts? You guys rock. Yeah, we were just
I
kinda talking about this.
agree 100,000 million jillion %. It's all epistemology at the end of the day.
Yeah. This is why I also try to, like, if I have a friend who's an atheist, I'm going to first try to convince him God exists, then convince him that a theistic God exists, and that epistemologically speaking, miracles are possible, and then go for the evidence for the resurrection. Than, they're finally animating the Moro arc. Let's go. Also, can you show off the new tat to the chat? How's it feeling?
What's up, Coley? Yeah, dude, I'm so excited about that. Here's the tattoo for anybody. Wait. That wants to see it again. It's Goku riding on his Nimbus on top of Kami House.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Mike, I haven't covered much of your content yet, but you seem to be led by the Holy Spirit. God bless. I left Islam. Now it's either Jesus or nothing. That is great to hear.
Based.
Excellent. Glad you left Islam. and definitely become a Christian if you've not. Resurrection, as Jews understood it, at least wasn't part of the Greco-Roman worldview. Even Jews didn't think the Messiah would be resurrected, and certainly not in the middle of history. Yeah, the Jews did not think that. Yeah. All right, let's bring in our next caller. Jay, can you hear us? You need to unmute yourself.
Hello, how you guys doing today?
Good. How
Good.
you doing? What's your religious view?
I'm agnostic right now.
Okay, so I would take it that you reject the resurrection then.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your
Uh,
objections to it?
Do you guys study psychology?
When we can, yeah. I've
Yeah,
had
so-
psychologists like Nick Meter on.
Yeah. The reason I asked this because I think it's a psychology problem because one day I will look at resurrection evidence, right, and I will start to believe, oh yeah, this is the truth, right. But then the next day I might look at some Bart Ehrman and stuff like that, and I'll be like, well, this can't be true. So I feel like it's a mind thing, and I was
It's a
wondering.
personal issue is what it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Oh, okay. Wait. So when you're saying, okay, because I thought you were going to say like you have a psychological objection to it, but this is more so like you're stating your own psychology is kind of getting in the way. Is that
Yeah.
where you're? Okay. Continue. I'm sorry.
So yeah, I mean, like, I just feel like, for example, when I watch IP's videos, right? In my mind, I'm like, what if Bart Ehrman can refute this? And I just asking you guys how, if you guys ever experienced with this, and how can I get
Here's-
over
Here's
this
the way
with
I
it?
sort of take it. I will, if new evidence comes out tomorrow, I will update my beliefs. So I once made a documentary on the Exodus, arguing that it happened in the 14th century BC. A week after I put that out, I took it down because somebody convinced me that it happened in the 1200s. So I was convinced that, oh yeah, actually this makes more sense. Not the 15th century, but it makes more sense in the 13th century. So I update my beliefs when I'm convinced by new evidence. I cannot constantly operate in the what if area of my brain. What if this? What if that?
Yeah.
I need to at least have a coherent worldview that I'm standing on as a foundation. And then if I need to change it in the future, I just move it. Like this happens all the time in science. We find, like, take studies on health. Like we were told, years ago, eating eggs is bad. Then we were told eating red meat is bad. Now we're told, all sorts of things. You update based on the evidence you have. And if, let's say in a year it comes out that actually we should all be drinking a glass of red wine a day, and this is scientifically proven, okay, then we just update our diets. Same way with our worldview. Why would we constantly want to live in the what if of life? Why not just go on, here's the evidence. If it's refuted one day, I'll just change according to that. Why not have that kind of mentality?
Yeah. Just bouncing off what Mike said there too. Like, I don't know if you're in a relationship, Jay, but like it wouldn't be healthy for you to live in the what if constantly if you have a girlfriend or a wife, right?
Yeah.
Like the moment she goes out the door, what if she's cheating on me, right? Like that's gonna. That being said, I do sympathize too with your experience because I'm a pretty neurotic person, and I'm always questioning literally everything, and it gets really annoying to everybody around me. And it just took a lot of time for me to kind of get to this more comfortable spot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think you got to also be a little careful too. Wait, I just made a connection. Are you the Jay that's in our Discord server that I said I think you let a bunch of atheists gaslight you?
Yes.
What's up, dude?
What's up, bro? By the way, I hope everything's doing, like, the text message you sent me. I hope everything's going good, man.
Oh yeah, we're fine, bro. I appreciate you.
You too, happy, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry
I mean, so yeah, I'm gonna actually, now that I connected those dots, I mean, I'm gonna say that too. Time, and I see Eric Manning in the chat, by the way, and Eric can attest to this probably. Him and I work with this team called Talk About Doubts, and every single time we see people that kind of fall into the same pattern that you're falling in, it's always the same thing. You kind of let yourself be gaslit by some of the rhetoric of atheists. Let me ask you this: do you feel like you're being dishonest if you pray and like ask Jesus to forgive you of your sins right now or anything like that?
I feel like I'll be dishonest if I like went to like a church, because like
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
honestly,
That's part of the gaslighting thing that I'm talking about, right? Why is it dishonest?
I just feel like if I go to a church, I'm most definitely just gonna be tricked into thinking it's true without studying
Okay.
the other evidence. I feel like personally.
Yeah. Is the opposite true as well? If you don't go to church and you watch atheist content, are you allowing yourself to be tricked into believing Christianity is false?
Yes.
Right. So if that came off like a gotcha or something like that, I apologize.
No, you
Um,
good.
the point I'm trying to make here is like, look, this is just how human psychology works, right? We we are not just purely rational beings that just have inputs and outputs. Our belief formation processes just include our experiences and the things we do, the communities we go with, stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not dishonest to go to church and do Christian things, and it's not dishonest to not let yourself be gaslit by atheists, right?
It's hard, bro. I mean, their arguments sound. Both of you guys' arguments sound extremely logical, and I study both of you guys' argument. I
Right.
study like
So then-
atheist arguments, and
If you're on the fence here, this is where Pascal's wagers should kick in, and you should just start thinking practically. If the atheists are right, okay, well then you die and you just rot in the grave. Who cares? But if they're wrong, there's infinite gain and infinite reward in the question. This is what Blaise Pascal was talking about. If you've gone through all these arguments and you still can't decide, just become a Christian, because it's just practically it's more pragmatic in the long run, because if Christianity is true, there's infinite gain there and there's infinite loss if it's false.
Yeah. And on top of that too, Eric just said something that I wanted to get to, but he said it, so I'm going to just read this. Seems like you have a need for epistemic certainty, which is very common, and I agree with what he's saying there. It sounds like you also have disconfirmation bias, right? In other words, tell me if this is accurate.
that's accurate. I would say, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I was going to ask you, like, do you want Christianity to be true, but you're scared? But you're scared of the fact that you want Christianity to be true, so you're seeking disconfirmation.
In a sense, I would say. I mean, I just want to make sure that I'm right. You know, I want to be sure, because I don't know if Islam is true. I don't know if all these other religions are true, right? So I'm just trying to try to make sure that this is correct.
Yeah.
It's
well, please keep doing that. Like, never we still study to this day. We don't stop studying. Like, we're always constantly research. I never tell people to not research, but from my perspective, where I'm at, I just sort of go like, okay, yeah, I'm going to keep studying, and if I need to change my beliefs in the future, I will. But why would it be wrong or bad to just say, hey, Christianity's true as far as I'm aware, based on all the available evidence, and I'll stick to this until someone changes my mind.
Yeah.
So it's possible for you to get your mind changed, like to where Christian, like my thing is like when you say like change your mind, like can you think somebody can change your mind into thinking Christianity is not true?
Yes, they got to offer a better explanation for the resurrection. That's what we've always.
I personally went through that cycle a lot when I started becoming a Christian, because I don't talk about this too much, but like I was an atheist most of my life. Wanted to become a Christian, sort of became a Christian, then became an atheist again, agnostic, atheist, Christian again, agnostic, like, and I just kept on going as I kept on coming across new information, kept updating my beliefs, and got to here.
Okay, so
I think you're putting way too much pressure on yourself to be the ideal observer.
I agree.
Like, I'm not trying to sound like a pothead here, man, but like, just chill. Like, one of the really cool things about the Christian faith, especially, is that we trust God to be a righteous and just judge, right? If you're really trying to be honest right now, you have no reason to put all this pressure on yourself. And I think the right thing to do is to pray to this God that you don't know that you believe in and go, if you are there, guide my mind as I learn everything. And if you are there, help me come to you. That's exactly what I did, mind you. I don't think there's any dishonesty there.
Okay. And I got one more question. So about, like the IP about and then about like me watching like your videos and in my mind thinking that this can possibly be refuted. What do you think I should do again? Like just
I think you should definitely
Go ahead,
start
Mike.
going to a church,
Mhm.
find a good Bible study, a group of Christians around that can help you grow, because they're going to be able to help you far more than we can. That's the first thing you should do. And then just keep studying, keep reading, keep watching the videos, keep engaging in arguments. I mean, like, one of the things I try to do is think of every possible objection. Than and I were just doing this. Like, I had an argument I was proposing, and now I'm kind of rejecting it because I think I came up with objections to it. So, like, this is the kind of stuff we do. We keep building and refining our faith that way.
Yeah. And I would also say this, and this is not an easy thing to hear, but I would also just say, like, stop watching the videos and stop trying to dig into the evidence right now. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you're never going to really sort through these things until you, at least on the intellectual level, have a better understanding of epistemology and like proper sound thinking, right? Because what I'm hearing from you is I watched this video and I watched this video and they both sound convincing. What am I supposed to do? That tells me I don't really have a framework to adjudicate between which argument is better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like in terms of tools, epistemology is going to be one of those things that you're going to need before you can actually even dig into the data.
You're right.
Anyway, we appreciate you coming. Please follow the advice we gave you and consider the Pascal wager thing. I think that might be a good place to start. And then just start going to church. I mean, go through this kind of stuff. I think you'll do fine in that way.
Eric's just in the chat hyping me up. Amen. Log off, read some books, learn some epistemology. Heck yeah, brother.
All right, y'all. Then if whenever you want to do that call, man, just let me know, bro.
Yeah, bro. Next week things are going to slow down a little bit, I think, and time should open up because I want to make time for a few other people too that I've been wanting to get to.
All right, y'all have a good one. I'm gonna let somebody else up.
Appreciate you, Jay. I'm praying for you.
Okay, let me do a super chats and then I'll bring in our next guest here. Just wanted to show my support and give Than his barks. Thank you. What do you think of faith because of reasons defensive Matthean priority and the two gospel hypothesis? I think it's compelling and strengthens the case for the resurrection even more. I'm not convinced of it. I'd like for that to be true, but I'm not there.
It's been a while since I watched it, so I can't really make any judgments. I'm friends with David. I like him, so I'll say he's cool, but I just don't remember his arguments to say anything.
Thanks. Thanos is one solid soldier of Christ.
Thank you.
How can I have Than hug me every day? Oh, weirdo.
Do you really want that?
Yeah. Why would you want weirdo?
Pretty gross.
I believe what most Christians have is a moral certainty in God and not absolute certainty. Possibly. I don't know. I'd have to think about what I need to know what you mean by moral certainty, What books on the early creeds do you recommend? Shoot, I had thought of one the other day and I can't remember it now. It's a book I cited in crap, I don't know. On the early
off the top of my head.
Start with J.N.D. Kelly's work. I forget the name of his book, but J.N.D. Kelly would be a good place to go. The community is amazing. You all turned out for that channel on Orthodox Apologetics. He had 67 subs, now to 120. Thanks.
Nice.
God bless each of you. Cool. All right, we're gonna bring in our next guest. CJ, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you.
Dude, are you in a dungeon or what's? Oh, are you remodeling your basement? I'm assuming.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Nice, bro. I know how that goes.
Yeah, for sure.
It's fun.
We got all this stuff. I got the pool table right here.
There you go, bro. That's what's up.
So,
you doing it yourself?
It's fun. No, me and my family are doing it. We've been doing it over time.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So what are your religious beliefs in regards to the resurrection?
Yeah, so I took Pascal's wager, and I think so. A few years ago, I was I moved from theism to agnosticism, mainly because of realizing how like it was part of it was intellectual. It was like realizing how big the debate over theism is, and realizing that there were people who even existed like Paul Draper and Graham Oppy and stuff. And then it was Richard Swinburne and his followers, his minions, like Kyle Allender,
Oh boy.
who brought
Sorry. Keep
me,
going.
yeah, who brought me out of agnosticism and back into theism,
Okay.
really confidently. And I think um, now that I'm at theism, I'm a Christian because of Pascal's wager, and I think that the evidence is interesting, and I'm looking into it. And so right now I'm looking into the case for the resurrection, but I'm also I'm trying to scrutinize it. I think I have a bias against Christianity, even though I like it. It was kind of what that last guy said, I like it, and for that reason, I'm scared of the fact that I like it. I don't want to be
I get
biased
that.
and stuff. So
I really appreciate that honesty and humility, by the way. That's pretty
yeah,
based.
thanks.
So
I'm trying to do the best that I can. So
yeah, we all
So do you have
Um,
any objections to like the resurrection that are bothering you specifically? Is there
Yeah.
something related around that?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to that specifically.
Okay.
I have like a list of debates that I'm watching on the resurrection and resources that I'm looking into, and I have read Tim and Lydia McGrew's chapter in the Blackwell's Companion to Natural Theology and stuff, and I thought that was pretty compelling. And I think my main concerns are historical, not philosophical, because I got through like watching like 10 different debates, and it was like David Hume had reincarnated 10 times, and all of the atheists were just the same person. It was like genuinely, I was like sick of it after a while. Oh, honestly, I was like, there's more Hume impersonators than
It literally all comes down to that half the time,
yeah,
dude.
it really is. It's David Hume, and I read Hume, and I was like, this is just so bogus. So to me, if the historical evidence is good, then yeah, I'm totally down for that. Anyway, I guess my main concerns, I had two. Firstly, one of the big problems with skeptical theories is that they're composite theories and they're not like simple, and they
Mhm.
try to string a bunch of things together. Part of me is concerned about the resurrection being a composite theory because of the ascension. And part of me is like, I think that the ascension intuitively follows from the resurrection, but at the same time, I'm not sure that it does, because it seems to me that Jesus could have, stayed on earth, and we need an explanation for why he didn't. And so the ascension might be some sort of like it might lower the total force of the argument. I don't think it would destroy it. But I was just curious about that. And then the second one was about the lack of tomb veneration. I was concerned that the lack of tomb veneration in the early church might indicate that the location of the tomb was unknown. Anyway, those are my two.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, like the sources on that are going to be kind of hard to find. I mean, like, so for example, most of what we see in the New Testament is them doing outreach. Hey, let's tell the story of Jesus. Hey, let's tell about how they got the church going. Hey, Paul's writing letters to these churches that are far away from the tomb. And they're not going to be doing like, hey, every Sunday, let's go to the tomb. There are stories in the later church that they did do that. That's the story behind the Phos Hilaron, which is an early Christian hymn. And they would take candles to the tomb in Jerusalem and sing around it. Now, of course, the Phos Hilaron was written centuries later. It's like, I think the beginning of the 300s is when it's dated to, but there was that idea. And there definitely was tomb veneration. The problem you're also going to run into is that the disciples were persecuted by the Jewish leaders in the early church. So, as we read in Acts, like they're being, beaten in the synagogue, or they're being beaten in Jerusalem and threatened. And Peter has to even flee because he's thrown in prison at one point. So, I mean, being this public community going to the same tomb every night is going to be kind of like, hey, there the Christians are, let's get them.
That's fair.
Kind of thing. So that's going to be an issue right there. And so, I mean, I think we're not going to expect sources to mention it based on what the letters they're putting together for the New Testament. and the things they're trying to say. And then we do see there are stories of the tomb being venerated later in the church, though. So
okay, so
course,
basically you wouldn't
Go ahead.
expect it really to show up much, and you wouldn't expect them to venerate it much. And then we have some later stories that show up, but we have just about the amount of historical evidence that you would expect.
I think so. Yeah, I think based on what we would see,
That's fair, because you guys had that video where you talked about how we have like almost no historical evidence for Pompeii, and that's like a really big event.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked about that. Yeah, we have like one eyewitness source for that. Is what I was trying.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So
I don't know how to condense all this stuff. I'm going to put something in the side chat. It's an article a friend of mine wrote on tomb veneration. My friend Caleb Jackson wrote this.
Okay.
Now,
cool.
as
I'm
for the thing on the ascension, let's talk about that. I'm kind of confused on what the problem is. Jesus rises from the dead, and then he ascends. I remember like my pastor was giving a sermon on this, and it's like, well, what do we expect Jesus to do? Like, if he goes down, that's going to give the wrong message to the people of where he's going. If he goes left or right, they're going to think he's walking around earth. Going up represents him going to heaven, up to the clouds where people tend to think God was. Craig Keener even talks about this in his commentary on Acts, that would just be expected. So I'm kind of confused on what your whole issue is with the ascension, how that damages the resurrection.
I think my issue was like, we need an explanation for why Jesus isn't like physically on earth today, right? Because that could be, you could consider that a minimal fact. I mean, like everybody would accept that. But to explain that, we would need the ascension as part of our theory. And I think unless we have like a way of showing how it would follow from the resurrection, then it becomes like, it makes our theory a composite theory. Right.
So are you saying basically like the ascension is only going to be an auxiliary theory unless we can show that it's like there's a biconditional relation from the ascension to the resurrection?
Like in Bayesian terms,
yeah. Okay. I need to think about that. If you give me a sec, I'm a really slow thinker when it comes to some of this stuff.
I would say like, in terms of what the New Testament claims are, it's going to be a composite theory. But if we're just talking about the resurrection itself, we can still make the argument for that. And then those other claims are going to be separate. So like, if everything stands or falls on the resurrection, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians, we can still make the case for Christianity. And then we just infer that those other things took place because we have good reason to trust that Jesus rose from the dead. I don't see that as too much of an issue because we have to do it with the Old Testament. Like we cannot say because Jesus rose from the dead, therefore we can prove the Exodus happened.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about this. I'd have to think about if there. I don't know that there is a way to get a biconditional relation there. There might be. I don't know if you've heard anybody try to say that. The other thought that I'm having though is. You actually said in Bayesian terms, so I'm happy you said that because you've also read the McGrew's paper in the Blackwell. You said, right? So one of the big points that they make here is that in order to get like a full partition, you have to take up all the conceptual space under the not R hypothesis, right?
Right.
So. Even if we want to say, I'm wondering, even if we want to say, and this is me just thinking on the fly right now, even if we want to like just kind of concede that the ascension is an auxiliary that has to be tacked on to the resurrection theory, that we might just say it's not going to be such a hit to the prior that it actually overcomes the base factor still, right?
Yeah.
Like how big of a hit do you think that would give? Because if we take a full partition, I can think of so many different ways that the not R space plays out, right? And that's going to really hurt the base factor for the not R space because, do you know what I'm saying when I'm saying these things? Sorry.
Yeah, okay. I get what you're saying. Because like we can think of so many different ways. Basically, the most probable thing that would have happened if Jesus didn't rise from the dead is that nothing would have happened, right?
Well, it's not just that, right? Because like it's not that you don't just test the resurrection hypothesis against the single strongest non-resurrection theory, because then you're not getting a full partition. You have to take that theory, so you could say like the I forget the acronym, the reburial
RHBS.
Yeah, RHBS model.
Yeah.
And you have to take that model, a bunch of other models, but then anything that's basically within the logical possibility space of not R, you have to take that as well. And then you take the weighted average of the Bayes factor. The Bayes factor is going to be the weighted average of that.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if what I'm wondering now is the fact that if we grant that it's not a biconditional relationship between the ascension and the resurrection, is that such a hit to the prior that it actually overcomes how devastating that problem I just brought up is? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, and this is going to sound like I'm going back on what I originally said about Hume, and I'm not. So I want to be really clear because I do not want to be associated with Hume in any way.
Oh, man.
But I think one big thing is when you pit R against not R, right? Most, I don't know, it seems to me that most theories in not R are going to be more intrinsically probable. No, it seems to me that just not R is going to be, as a space, is going to be more intrinsically probable than R.
Yeah. Okay. There's two things I could say there. Let's start here. I'll start somewhere where it's going to sound like I'm not addressing what you're saying, and then I'm going to go to the thing that sounds more explicit.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So when it comes to the Bayes factor, the problem is the opposite problem still, because like I said, we can think of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of not R hypotheses, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the probability of the evidence, given that any of these specific not R ones that you're going to think about, the overwhelming majority of them is going to render a probability of the evidence being near zero, right?
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying.
Right. And so the question is going to be, okay, sure, maybe they're intrinsically more probable such that like the prior is going to be higher. So what's going to be the prior of the ratio? What's the ratio going to be between the prior probability of the resurrection and all the not R spaces then?
Yeah. So if I'm understanding you right, and maybe I'm not.
Yeah, and we can talk more offline, because I know at this point people are like, oh my gosh, these guys are talking about math. This is so...
yeah, I know. I'll join the Discord or something, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess my understanding is, most of the time, like an atheist would say, most of the time dead men don't rise, right? Obviously. Yeah. We have so many control cases where dead men don't rise, right? And a Christian is just going to accept that, obviously. But you would say most of the time, dead men don't rise and don't leave behind the evidence that we have. Is that what you're saying? Like in simple terms?
Well, so that's two different things. Because I don't know if you've seen kind of how I go about the priors and everything like that. So the one point I'm making right now is basically this. You have a asymmetry problem, because I think I have good so I think that I can counter any reason basically somebody might give for a low prior probability for the resurrection. Mm-hmm. But what the skeptical person can't do is show me why the Bayes factor is not going to be drastically in favor for the resurrection hypothesis because of all the not R logical possibility space. Does that make sense? Because I agree with the McGrews when they assign a really high Bayes factor, and that's because in order to get a full partition, you need to take that full possibility space in mind. Mm. Now, with the dead men stay dead thing, that's an attempt to say like the prior probability of the resurrection is going to be super low, right? And just so that way I'm not giving you something you're not asking for, would you like a response to that type of an argument?
Yeah, if you could just briefly, yeah.
Yeah, because this is the way I'm understanding this argument, right? Because we're both operating on a Bayesian framework. You might say something like the statistical probability that somebody died and stayed dead is going to be equivalent to the amount of humans that have died and stayed dead, right? So we'll say 200 billion to 1, right? And then we might infer from there to say something like the prior probability of Jesus dying and staying dead should be around 200 billion to 1. Is that kind of like a fair reconstruction of what?
That'd be a fair reconstruction of the argument, because I see this argument by like Matt Dillahunty and all, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah. So, this is where things, and we can definitely talk more on Discord here because probability theory gets really annoying, and it's best done really slowly too.
Yeah.
I'll start. So, do you know about the different types of probability? There's statistical probability, physical probability, and epistemic probability.
No, I saw like a 40-second short where you talked about it. But...
Oh, okay. So very briefly, statistical probability is just the frequency that some X happens within a particular reference class, given a certain sample size. Physical probability is just going to be like the probability of some like future states of affairs relative to like physical laws, stuff like that, right? Like weather reports giving a probability of it being rainy or something like that is going to be based on physical probability. Mm-hmm. Epistemic probability or like inductive probability is going to be like the relative support from one proposition to another, right? So like if you have the proposition it's raining outside and you have the proposition I am outside, what is the probability inductively that I am getting wet?
Yeah.
Right. And you're doing that apart from like any observations. This is more just about propositions and stuff like that. Okay, so with that in mind, we have a bunch of these distinctions, and with this I'm seeing people in the chat. Sorry. And with these distinctions in mind, then you might run into some counterexamples, right? Because you believe in like abiogenesis, I'm assuming. Like I do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So let's just like keep it simple. The conceptual space is like life originated on Earth at some point, or life always originated on Earth. These are the two competing theories. And then you might just run a counterexample argument and say something like, okay, well, there's been like septillion times where life has like come from life on Earth. And we've never observed one single instance of
so abiogenesis is like ruled out by a statistical probability.
Right. And so like it's even worse, right? Because the prior probability would be the statistical frequency here, but on the basis of like the testimony of people, because I'm assuming you haven't like observed any of the evidence or anything like that. And we can dig into the details here, but the basic idea is like you and I both believe it based on the authoritative testimony of people that we deem to be in a position to know the relevant facts. And despite the fact that the statistical frequency of life originating from non-life is septillion over 1, we still believe in abiogenesis. So that's like a counterexample type kind of thing to the argument. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to, because I should let somebody else go. Where should I go if like I want to learn more about this? Because I see Dirk Jensen in the chat. It was very unhappy.
He's like, there's a bunch of places. I mean, join the Discord server, and I'm happy to give you a bunch of resources and all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sweet. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you,
Thanks
bro.
for coming, man.
That was so fun. I love getting to dork out with people, man.
Yeah.
Do you notice, by the way, just like how calm these and rational these discussions are relative to our Islam?
Pretty based. Epistemology all the way down, like Muhammad said. That's true. Muhammad must have said that. Yes. Mark 9:22-27. I guess that's referring to the father saying, "Lord, I believe, help my unbelief." Being neurotic, Than, did you ever question Islam when you were neurotic? I guess.
I mean, I was never a Muslim, if that's what you're.
But did you ever, like, I guess, like worry it was true or something? I think is what
I actually did at some point. But like, and this is like I did, and I just decided Christianity was true because the force of the evidence for Christianity was going to be evidence against Islam, basically. And then I started digging into Islam, and I was like, "Whoa! I gave this religion way too much credit." So.
Yep, I get what you mean. All right, Masonic Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you?
How are you doing? What is your religious views?
I mean, I'm Catholic, but I'm really looking into sort of this stuff. Very, very new to it all.
But so you believe Jesus rose from the dead, right?
Um, yeah, I do. I'm just really unsure on some things.
Well, we are trying to talk to people that are skeptical of the resurrection today. We could what I would recommend is if in your position, you could watch our series on the resurrection. It's a 6-part series called The Resurrection of Jesus. It's a playlist on there. I would recommend for you to watch that, then come back if
Hmm.
you're still doubting, because we want to try to
I
get some people in to have some conversations on that specifically.
I'm a couple episodes into that. I think I'm on the third one,
Okay,
and
good.
yeah. So I'll watch the rest of that. When's the next time we're going to be doing one of these Jesus Resurrected ones?
We'll try to do one probably February or early March. We'll try to do another one.
Okay. All right then. Thank you. Have a good.
Appreciate it. Jordan, can you unmute yourself?
Why does this name
Hey.
sound familiar?
Guys, can you hear me?
Hey, how you doing? We
Yes,
can hear
sir.
you. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, putting the show on. I
Yeah, thanks for being
oh,
here.
yeah, I want to break the ice. What do you guys think is the most what would you say is the best naturalistic explanation for the resurrection? If you had to give one.
I would probably
Right.
say the RHBS model. It's
Is it-
reburial. Say it again.
No, I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so the basic idea, if I remember off the top of my head, 'cause it's actually been a while since I've dug into this stuff, the specifics. It's a reburial. So like Jesus was buried, but then he was reburied. Somebody went to his tomb, found it empty. They hallucinated a resurrection because of this. And then that hallucination caused them to start talking to people. That brings about like other social phenomena where other people are starting to believe this, and then they hallucinate it, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
That's fine.
What about you, Mike? Do you have another one, or would you agree with that one?
I stick with that one for now. I'd have to think more about it. I think you need to somehow explain the empty tomb for sure. And then you need to explain why so many people started hallucinating.
Okay. Do you guys both agree that 1 Corinthians 15 is the earliest written reference to the resurrection?
Well, it's not the earliest written reference because it's in 1 Corinthians, but it is the earliest reference. It'd be like the earliest creed to it. And it was an oral creed before it was written down.
I guess what I mean is like the first reference to it that actually like explains. Can you pull up the verse or the chapter, like the beginning? I'm not sure how to if you go to like Bible Hub or something.
1 Corinthians 15.
Yeah, like just the first few verses of it.
Yeah. For now, I will remind you, brothers, of the gospel I preached to you, which you received, in which you stand, and by which you are saved, if you hold fast to the word I preached to you, unless you believe in vain. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the scripture, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day in accordance with the scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas, then to the 12. Then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James and to all the apostles. That's basically where you think the creed cuts off.
Yeah, that's the relevant part. And it seems to me like what would you derive from that is the evidence that Paul is giving for the resurrection there?
So the evidence I would say is we have an early belief, very early on, that Jesus died, was buried, and that he physically walked out of the grave. So he was raised on the third day. And then he started appearing to people. So first to Peter, then to the 12, then he appeared to a large group of more than 500. He also appeared to James and all the apostles. So that would include the 12 and others as well.
And but by appeared, he doesn't actually describe what appeared means there, right?
Correct. He does not describe it in detail, no, but we can infer from that they would have seen a risen Jesus, because that which died is that what was buried, and that which was buried is what was raised, which would be his physical body.
Did Paul see Jesus's physical body?
I would say yes, based on what I understand in Acts. Yeah.
So
Wait, can
he
I
meant
ask you?
physically resurrected Jesus before he went to heaven?
Wait, I want to ask a clarifying question, just on the off chance we might accidentally be talking past each other. Do you know the difference between like Christians that take a minimal facts approach to the resurrection versus kind of like a more max data case?
I think the minimal facts is something that like Habermas talks about, where there's just certain facts that scholars agree on.
Yeah.
But when I've looked at maximal case, it seems like it seems to me, and I could be wrong about this, but it seems to me that the maximal case is just basically endorsing inerrancy when it comes to everything about the resurrection and the empty tomb. I don't really see a difference there.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt right there, because I hear that as somebody that talks about the max data case all the time. I hear that all the time, and people like me, Lydia McGrew, Eric Manning, we have to constantly tell people, no, we actually do allow for good faith errors and stuff like that in our modeling of the Gospels. So, like, why do you think that we're endorsing inerrancy or anything like that there? Because like the model that we propose isn't a theological one.
Well, what I'm trying to do is if we go back to 1 Corinthians 15 for a moment, it's, according to most scholars, that's the earliest written reference where he mentions the witnesses and himself in the list. And this is a verified firsthand source. It's by Paul himself. And nobody disputes that, not even like Bart Ehrman or any of the skeptical scholars dispute that. They agree that Paul wrote this letter. And so if you contrast that with the Gospels, a lot of skeptical scholars, or, I don't know, secular scholars or whatever you want to call them, they disagree over who wrote the Gospels, but they all agree that Paul wrote this letter. So I have to insert that because I don't want to just pull the scholarly consensus card, but I think that's relevant because we only have time to study so much, and if scholars agree on one thing and they disagree on another, for a historical debate purpose, it seems to go with the scholarly view that all scholars agree Paul wrote this letter, whereas they disagree about the Gospels. And that gives me pause to endorse to not wholly endorse what the Gospels say or who they were written by.
So I want to address all that you just said, but the problem is that doesn't actually answer my question, which is how does any of that tell you that people that endorse the max data case and like historical reportage model of the Gospels are presupposing inerrancy or something like that?
Well, I guess if you presuppose the maximal case, can you give me an instance of something in the Gospels pertaining to the resurrection or the empty tomb that did not happen as described in the Gospels?
What? Let's just say hypothetically, I don't.
So
Then
everything
what?
So everything in the Gospels pertaining to the resurrection and the empty tomb is true.
Inerrancy is a doctrine about the Bible wholesale, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if I say there are no historical errors in the Gospels, does that mean I'm an inerrantist?
Well, I don't see, for all practical purposes, I don't see a difference. But I kind of want to get back to 1 Corinthians 15.
Well, let's get back. Yeah, let's get back to 1 Corinthians.
I'm going somewhere with this. I think we'd all enjoy this.
All right, let's just go. So make the argument for 1 Corinthians you want to get to. Just make the argument, and then.
So going back to 1 Corinthians 15. Paul puts his experience in line with the others. He says he appeared to him, and I just asked Mike if Paul saw Jesus' physical body, but the experience in Paul's letters is still not described as what he saw. He says he had a revelation in Galatians. That's Galatians 1:16. He says I saw Jesus in 1 Corinthians 9:1, but he doesn't describe it. And then in 1 Corinthians 15:8, he says Jesus appeared to me. Now, if you look up that Greek word for appeared, sometimes translated as was seen, is it true that word does not necessarily indicate the physical appearance of a person?
That
Yeah, of
word by
course.
itself. Yeah. That word
Okay.
by itself would not indicate that. Yeah.
Now, how can you convince me that word by itself, plus whatever else is in 1 Corinthians 15, necessarily indicates a pre-ascension physical appearance of a body?
So
Yeah.
let's
Go ahead,
go
Mike.
back to what we talked about with the creed. So the creed includes more details. It says Jesus died, was buried, and then was raised.
Mhm.
And then he appeared. So we're following, there's a sequence it follows. This happened, then this happened, then this happened. Jesus died, was buried. What's buried? The body. Was raised. Whatever was buried was raised. So the body then was raised. And then the appearances we would expect are in conjunction with that. So if that which was buried is that which was raised, we would expect that which was raised is that which appeared. And so it would follow that when he appeared to these people, we would expect it to be physical. And then, of course, other later texts like the Gospels, as well as the early sermons and Acts, are in agreement with that as well.
So, but Paul says he appeared to me. It's the same sequence. So did Paul have a pre-ascension appearance of Jesus?
No.
So it doesn't follow that died, buried, raised, appeared necessarily indicates a pre-ascension physical appearance.
Well,
because Paul places his post-ascension appearance in the list.
That's fine. So think about what we're doing here. Let me give you an analogy here. Okay. So if I said, yeah, I talked to you, I saw you. Let's say your camera was on. I saw you. I also saw my wife today. I saw my parents. I just gave you a list of people I saw. Does that mean the way I saw all of these people is necessarily going to be the same? No, because I saw you through a computer. Just giving a list of things that appeared doesn't mean those appearances all have to happen in the exact same way.
Yeah, I agree with that, but you still need to establish that these were veridical appearances of a resurrected body, and I haven't seen anything in 1 Corinthians 15 that does that.
Well,
because the word by itself and the sequence can indicate post-ascension appearances, and post-ascension appearances can be ambiguous, visions and revelations and the like. And so
we don't make a case just from 1 Corinthians that we can prove the resurrection. This is just, we use that as data. Okay, so we know they appeared to groups of people, but then we're going to use things like I mentioned, like the early sermons in Acts. We're going to use data from the Gospels, like I did when I gave the presentation at the start of this. We're going to use other data that we can use. This is just, 1 Corinthians is primarily used to show that they believe Jesus physically rose very early on and that he also appeared to multiple people.
Yeah, I have a video because you specifically were talking about 1 Corinthians 15. I think it's, did Jesus really raise from the dead or something like that? And I go through an argument because I'm assuming you're going to make the argument that like 1 Corinthians 15:39 and I think it's through 40 something talks about a spiritual resurrection or something like that, right?
I know that there are interpretations for that. I'm kind of on the fence about what Paul believed. I'm not really like,
okay.
I don't think he believed in the resurrection of the spirit because he does use the word body. He definitely uses the word body.
Great.
Yeah, I just don't know. The thing that I normally see in these debates is that they sometimes argue, hey, he believed in a body, therefore they saw the body, but that doesn't follow because we've just established that post-ascension appearances were accepted.
Right. So here's how the Maximalist is going to use Paul, right? Because for me, the First Corinthians Creed is just showing that there's an early belief that was widely attested in the early Christian communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
From there, we can go to like Acts 9, Acts 22, Acts 26, and we can just see what Paul says, right? Paul gives the occasion of his account. So he's Paul, like in 9:2, 22:5, 26:12. Paul was traveling to Damascus to extradite arrested believers to Jerusalem for trial. I'm reading some slides I had for a debate right now. That's all. He gives the time in 22:6, 26:13. It occurred about noon or midday. He gives the place. I'm going to stop giving a bunch of these references just to save time. It occurred on the road from Jerusalem to Damascus, near Damascus. He describes the appearance. A light from heaven flashed around Paul. He describes the reaction. Paul and his companions fell to the ground, apparently in reverence. And he describes the initial dialogue. Who are you, Lord? And Jesus replies, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. There's only slight variation in the summaries that exist between the three dialogue memories. He describes the Lord's command: get up and go to the city. You will be told what you must do. And the aftermath: Paul is blinded by the intensity of the light, and he has to be led by hand to Damascus, and he's fast for 3 days. And other people are attesting to what happened to Paul and claim to have seen something here too. Now, I know you probably want to jump in there. What I'm going to say from here then is, because you're probably going to want to say something like, okay, so yeah, Paul's not explicitly admitting to saying he saw the physical resurrected body or something like that. And that's fine. We can actually just grant that, because from there, what we can say then is something like this. Well, Paul's persecuting Christians. He knows that they believe the physical resurrection of Jesus, right? And then he goes, okay, I'm going to become a Christian and affirm the physical resurrection of Jesus as well, based off this experience I just had. So you can inductively support through Paul the physical resurrection of Jesus, because not only through his encounters with previous Christians, but also his own writings in 1 Corinthians 15, he clearly believes there's a physical resurrected Jesus.
Yeah, I think I can grant, for the sake of argument, that he believed Jesus was physically resurrected, but there still is a dispute he didn't write Acts. That's Luke, or the author of Luke and Acts wrote Acts, and scholars dispute the reliability of those sources. And so
we can get into the arguments on this stuff, and I think like Luke wrote Acts. I think the author of Acts was a traveling companion of Paul.
But but let's not get too far off topic here. Let's get kind of back onto that. So like, what I'm confused about is like, what are you offering up as an alternative to the resurrection itself? Like, what are you trying to posit happened?
Well, I guess, I mean, if I were trying to give a full explanation of what happened, I'm not sure I'm able to do that, but I'm thinking of like, I guess I'm trying to frame the debate as an argument for the resurrection. And it seems to me, in order to establish that a resurrection occurred, then these people, the only way to confirm that happened, at least in the first century, was to have actually seen him. Like he died and he needed to be alive again. But in the earliest reference we have, we don't know what type of appearances these were. And so it doesn't give evidence, or at least not convincing evidence or more probable evidence, that they actually saw the dead guy alive again. And you have to appeal to the later sources to fill in the gap, which the later sources are disputed. And so that's the problem there. But I guess, is it okay to agree that the earliest source by itself, this is 1 Corinthians 15, is not sufficient to establish that they actually saw a physical person?
I would disagree. And the reason I would disagree is because, again, I go through that sequence of 1 Corinthians. And you're going to get basically the idea that, again, he died, then was buried, and that was raised, and then that appeared. And even if we exclude Paul at the end, because, again, he's just listing his appearances alongside them, okay? Even if we exclude Paul at the end, whatever was raised is what also appeared, and that would have to be a physical appearance.
Well, I mean, I guess I would depend on what you mean by physical. Like if he appeared in a blinding light, like Acts says, that's a physical phenomena, but it's not seeing an actual body. So I'm not sure how. Like I think I would just have to pull out the post-ascension part, because the sequence that he gives is the same for each one. He says died, buried, raised, appeared. He does not say the other guys saw him before he ascended to heaven and then I saw him after. He doesn't make that distinction.
Right.
Yeah. It's
but
a short little
in the same chapter, he talks about what the resurrection body is like, right?
Well,
and I would argue I would argue once you understand the Jewish nature of what Paul is doing, it's clearly about a physical resurrection. I mean the seed analogy in of itself should tell you that it's of the same kind.
Yeah, I'm not saying he believed in a spiritual resurrection. I'm saying he may have not seen a body, which is not the same thing. Like you seem to be arguing.
Well, I mean,
over
again,
the
even if
physicality
we
of the resurrection.
Right, but you're shifting the argument right now, right? And I don't think you're doing it on purpose, right? The 1 Corinthians 15 passage, right? Your objection is, well, you can't really prove from that alone that this is about a physical appearance or anything like that he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And
that needs to be shown.
Paul's not talking about just his own experience, though, right? He's speaking on the behalf of the community and the community testimony
And
Right.
here's the important part. Even if we grant that Paul experienced Jesus differently, he didn't actually see a physical Jesus. He's just listing appearances. He's not saying a list of appearances is not saying they're all qualitatively the same. He's giving you a quantity of appearances. He's not telling you the quality of the appearances. So like, again, it's like if I spoke to you and I also spoke to my own mother, I'm giving a list of people I spoke to. I'm not saying that the nature of the way we spoke is more intimate in certain ways or not. That's what I'm trying to get at here. So just a mere list does not point in that direction.
Well, it seems to me that the data of the appearances is the only way to establish that a resurrection occurred. But if the data of the appearances in the source is ambiguous, and it seems that it is, then the skeptic has no evidential justification for believing in the resurrection.
Okay, well, hold up. You said here's something you did say, that you said that Paul saw Jesus post ascension. Where are you getting that idea from?
That's the Orthodox standard Christian belief.
But
I'm making an
exactly.
internal critique. I'm making the internal critique of what you guys believe.
But exactly, you're going on
That's what
later
you believe, isn't
data.
it?
You're going on, but that's my point, though. That's what I'm trying to. You're saying we can't include later data like the Gospels because they're disputed, but you're also drawing from those later sources to say that his appearance was post ascension. So why can't we also draw from them?
I believe he said Acts, and then that's when we started talking about Acts. I stuck with 1 Corinthians 15, 1 Corinthians 9:1, and Galatians 1:16 is a revelation. Those are the three sources.
We're just going on 1 Corinthians, the earliest data.
Right.
What was raised is what they saw, and then Paul puts himself on that list. If we're just looking at just that, what's that?
The verb for appear does not necessarily indicate the physical appearance of a person. You need to establish that it does.
And that's what I keep trying to do. I keep saying, like, if you look at the full creed in context, that which was buried is that which was raised, and that is what was appeared. So it would logically follow that. And then
we don't
Paul
know
goes
if he's
on
appearing from heaven. We don't know if he's appearing from heaven or pre-heaven, because he talks about Jesus being in heaven in his letters.
Follow the logic here. If we just have, if all the New Testament disappeared, we just had 1 Corinthians 15.
Right.
Look at what we have. We have, again, that which was buried is that which was raised, that which was appeared. That implies it was the body. Then Paul goes on after this to explain what the resurrected body is. It just logically follows they're seeing a body.
No, because the body, what follows is that they believed the body was raised. It doesn't follow that anybody inspected a tomb and found it empty. It doesn't follow that they physically saw a body with their eyes. All that follows is that they believed in a physical resurrection. But without the verification, then there's no evidence.
Okay, but that's all we're establishing, though, at this point. We're establishing just what they claim to have seen. That's what the creed does. And by that, they would, and even like Bart Ehrman and Paula Fredrickson would read that what they saw convinced them of a resurrected Jesus. Therefore, they think they see the actual body walking around. That's what the creed is basically showing us.
The other thing I forgot to mention is that you'll notice in 1 Corinthians, I believe it's 15:3-4, the belief is actually said to be first and foremost based on the scriptures.
It says in accordance with the scriptures.
In accordance with, so that means that they're getting some sort of interpretation from the scriptures and that bolsters their belief. That's mentioned before any appearances. So it's mentioned before the appearances.
I think we're reading a little too much into that. It's not saying that because the scriptures, because again, what does he cite as evidence? The appearances itself.
Yes. Well, that he cites the scriptures and then the appearances to bolster that belief. What I'm saying is that it's possible, since they believed they were living, like in an end time eschatological period in history, right? Like they were thinking like, hey, the end times are coming, and the end times just happened to be when the resurrection was going to occur. And then all of a sudden Jesus dies. You can see how that some of them would put together, oh yeah, that guy Jesus was preaching about it. Maybe he's resurrected, but and then they turn to the scriptures to like find confirmation of their belief that they were leaning towards.
Now we're going outside of what the creed says. It doesn't say that. It says the reason they believed, or what it's basically showing us is the reason they believed because he appeared to them. It's not because they went to the scriptures. And this kind of actually works against the case, because if they were to use that, they go to places like Daniel, where it says the resurrected body was shining like a star. And we don't see them saying that, anything like that. So if that's what they're using as their basis, we should see them quoting it or using that. But the creed is based on the appearances that they saw after the body was raised. That's the basis of the creed as the establishment of the faith.
Okay. Well, where do you guys think we should go from here? I mean, I've enjoyed what we discussed so far, but
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much time. I
No.
just
What I want from you is I want an alternative. So if Jesus didn't if Jesus didn't resurrect, what is the better explanation of all the available data that we have?
Well, so I guess I would if I go with, I guess I would encourage the listeners who are listening to this to look up that Greek word ophthe that's translated as appeared, and you'll see that like when it's used in the Septuagint, it's used for a lot of not necessarily physical appearances. It's used for visions and dreams and such. And I'm not saying that it always refers to those types of things, but the fact that it does makes the appearances in 1 Corinthians 15 ambiguous. But the resurrection case can't be ambiguous if you're trying to use it as evidence, and I think that's the defeater for the argument, which I want to emphasize here.
It's hardly a defeater.
But again, you guys have the burden of proof to show that it means a physical appearance.
Okay, but no,
you have the burden.
Paul, in the very same chapter, again argues that the resurrection body is a physical body.
Again, you're conflating the belief in a physical resurrection with the appearances, and those aren't.
This is what I was trying to say that you keep flip flopping on. Okay, we can. No,
I'm arguing about the appearances. I'm arguing about the appearances, and you're diverting to the body. The appearances are what's important.
Do you not think that? Okay, let me ask you this. Let's just suppose Paul did not have physical resurrection experience. It was just a light. Does that mean that we must infer that he thinks that everybody else's testimony about their own experiences regarding the resurrected Christ are also all spiritual light figures?
No, I'm coming to the conclusion they're all ambiguous because of that verb. I'm not saying.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That is just ridiculous because again, later on, Paul. Hold on. There's a distinction between the question, "What did Paul experience?" and the question of what did Paul believe regarding the physical, the resurrection body?
Yeah,
yes or no?
That's what I was just saying.
Okay, cool. So
the belief in the physical resurrection is completely separate from the appearance.
So Paul, when in 1 Corinthians 15, the creed is speaking on behalf of the community, not just himself, right? And so. Do you really want to say when he says that he appeared to us and stuff like that? He's talking about.
We don't have any description of what appeared to them though. Like if the 500 just thought they saw like a Virgin Mary appearance of a figure floating around.
Yeah.
That's
now
not
you're
evidence
just
of a physical resurrection, is it?
So
we don't have a description.
Paul believes in a physical resurrection, but experienced a non-physical experience, and so. Somehow that gets you to saying, well, we just don't know. And this is just because why? You think that no other evidence is applicable?
No, I'm just sticking with the earliest source. We haven't even gotten to the Gospels yet. We can, but I'd prefer to establish.
So you're okay. So this is a really trivial argument then, right? Because all you're really saying is based off this one word in the 1 Corinthians Creed, apart from any context and other mitigating data, we don't really know what happened.
Well, the context you provided is not sufficient to demonstrate a physical appearance, which is what you need.
Yes, it is. We did because again,
no, it isn't because the appearances can be pre or post.
I will explain it again. I will explain it again. That which died is that which was buried, which is a body, and then that which was buried is that which was raised. That which was raised is what appeared. So it logically follows the best explanation of what this creed is telling us is that they saw the physical body of Jesus after it was raised. So regardless of the word appeared, we've already granted that can be used for visions and dreams and whatnot. That is in the context of the earlier part of the creed, showing that what appeared to them was a body.
So if they were all post-ascension visions from heaven, you would still believe that Jesus was raised?
I would say that's what the creed is still showing, that they saw a body.
But the mode of seeing is ambiguous in regards to exactly how he was experienced, though, right?
No, because it would still involve the resurrected Jesus. That's what they saw.
but we don't know if it's prior to an ascension or after. If it's after, then I don't know.
Doesn't matter. It's still the
Yeah, it
resurrected
does.
Jesus.
Well,
Still
I
the
mean,
resurrected Jesus, isn't it?
Okay, why would
Well,
Paul believe in? Because I also went on a quite a little bit of monologue explaining how the Maximus is going to use Paul. So why would Paul believe in a physical resurrection?
due to background beliefs about how they thought the resurrection would take place, but I think
Okay.
the background beliefs don't.
And so
don't
Paul's just
necessarily
speaking
entail-
on the behalf of the community when he talks about a physical resurrected body and all this other stuff.
He's speaking to Greeks in that letter, so I don't know what their knowledge of general resurrection was like. I think they actually reject the general resurrection if you pay attention to the context. They believe in Jesus' resurrection, but they do not. They are skeptical of the general resurrection of all believers, and that's in verses 12 through 20, I believe, because he has
we're
to
second.
acquire
Yeah.
some-
So was Paul a Jewish person, somebody that believed in like Hellenistic conceptions of apotheosis and stuff like that, or was he a Jewish person that believed in physical resurrection?
Well, he was Jewish, but the context of the letter is written to Greeks, so he's using
Yeah.
language such as spiritual body, soma pneumaticon.
Yeah.
He's using all
Yeah,
that.
and that's helping my point, right?
Well,
Because he later on and elaborates using that language, referencing a Deuteronomic matrix to argue that the resurrection body is physical.
It doesn't follow that the physically resurrected Jesus appeared prior to going to heaven, though, and that's what you need to establish in the context of the creed.
Jordan, we're still doing this thing. That you're getting the ascension from later texts. If you're getting the ascension from later texts, you're using them as authoritative on things that happen.
No,
why
I need
can't
to find
we
the
do
references.
the same?
I need to find the references. Paul talks about Jesus being in heaven. He talks about
Okay, fine.
So he's in heaven. He's in heaven per Paul's letters.
It's still a physical body, though, according to that which was raised. It came out of the grave.
How do you see a physical body in heaven? How is that possible? Does he come down like literally? We missed the second coming, and he physically appeared in the sky.
I mean, like that is a possibility, or the idea of the unseen realm that Michael Heiser talks about. This idea that there's an unseen realm around us, and then like the curtain opens and we see in it sometimes. Like with the appearance of angels, that is also as well. But you still need to connect the appearances to what they actually saw, which would be the physical Jesus raised. And now, if we're just going on the earliest evidence, that's what they saw. If we're going to use later evidence like the ascension that we're going to get from Acts, then we also need to include what he says about that.
Yeah. So, but it seems to me that the argument, if you're going to say that they saw a body, it only follows that they saw the body if you can show that these were pre-ascension normal mode of experiences. And I don't think you've given an argument for that.
Does the creed exclude that?
I think that's a shifting of the burden of proof. I think
no, it's not. Okay, here, let me ask you a different question.
You
then,
need
Jordan.
to show they're not ambiguous. That's what you need to show, because you're saying
that's not what we need to show. Jordan,
you're saying the evidence should be convincing to a skeptic, right?
Jordan, here's the question. Is the probability that Paul is talking about a physical resurrection body, given the evidence, higher than the probability that Paul is not talking about a physical resurrection, given the evidence?
You've just reverted back to the bodily resurrection when we're talking about the nature of the appearances. You need to make your argument.
Answer his question.
Just answer my question. What is Paul talking about?
I just did. You're shifting the argument to the nature of the resurrection.
What? Okay, it sounds like you don't understand why that's really pertinent then, because again,
no, I do. I just realized that you're trying to shift it from what the important point is, because it doesn't matter what type of resurrection they believed in. It matters how they saw the resurrected person.
I understand that. So why would Paul be saying that there's a resurrection body and trying to represent other people? Like in the very same chapter, right? Paul is talking about how Jesus appeared to many people. That word is ambiguous. But then later on, he talks about what the resurrection body is, which is a physical thing.
But that all falls apart if there are appearances from heaven.
Okay.
No,
Because
Do we have? Hold on.
the body could be in
Do we
heaven
have
and
any
appearing there.
reason? Do we have any reason to support the idea that all of these appearances that Paul's talking about are all from heaven?
Yes, because Paul includes the appearance to him in the list and says the exact
Oh my
same
God. We are
terminology.
going in circles.
Oh my god. Oh my goodness.
Listen, we already addressed
You
that.
just
And this
asked me
thing-
and I gave you a reason.
That's-
Thanks
what's
for
wrong
coming,
with
man.
it?
We appreciate it. We're not going to keep going in circles, but man, okay.
This is why I wanted to get outside of 1 Corinthians 15 and try to get to Acts and actually just start giving gospel reliability arguments, right? Because all this guys is good. And then,
he did. He's like, oh yeah, the ascension. Yeah, okay. Well, we can use the ascension then. No, I
right.
just
But the moment I start
Corinthians.
trying to get into it, he doesn't want to talk about gospel reliability.
Right. We can't talk about that because that's later sources, but we can't trust them for the ascension. And by the way, I'm not going to actually give you a better explanation for the resurrection. I'm just going to say you can't prove it. But also, according to Jordan, we can only use 1 Corinthians, the creed of 1 Corinthians 15, but he's allowed to use the ascension in Acts, other parts of 1 Corinthians, the double standard, man. And then, oh, by the way, all he needs really is the word appeared in Greek. Yes, that's all I need to show that this isn't like, man, get off my stage. I believe an honest, non-resistant non-believer will be saved. Do you agree with this? Otherwise, it contradicts God's eternal mercy, justice. The question is, of course, does a non-resistant non-believer actually exist? That needs to be established. And if so, I don't think they're guaranteed salvation, but God would work a way for them to be saved regardless. Post-mortem. Send IP a question on Insta on advice on trying to get a career in apologetics. My name is Tate. You got to just start doing it, man. You just got to start diving in, doing apologetics. That's what you got to do. Start a channel, start making reaction videos on TikTok or Instagram. Oh, yeah, Than. Well, I'm training to be strong as Goku. I don't know what this is in reference to.
Good for you.
Good. Do you ever not recommend a certain denomination? No, I don't really do that, no. A moral certainty is based on evidence, but still allows some doubt, but not a disbelief kind of doubt. Very true. I'm a Christian. I've recently heard the atheist argument that other religious leaders also resurrected as well as Jesus. Holy Cooley did a video about it. How would you respond?
Sure. It's the same answer again. I'm always going to give. I have a case for the resurrection of Jesus that has a certain amount of evidence for it and a priori arguments for the prior probability of the resurrection of Jesus being a little bit higher. And we have modern day miracles done in Jesus' name. Show me a case that mirrors the evidential force.
Right.
And then we can talk.
Well said. XYZ. Can you unmute yourself? How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
What's going on, man? Yeah, we can hear you.
Audible? Yeah.
Yeah, you're a little quiet.
Your audio is pretty low. Yeah.
My audio is low.
Let me turn it up.
Yes.
See if I can turn it up there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I don't actually believe in the existence. Look, I am born in a Christian family, but I doubt the existence of God. And so it proceeds with the resurrection. So yeah, I have got alternate theories for the resurrection, like there were some people who started with lies, and then Paul was maybe murdering them, or the Jews were persecuting them. Then I analyze it with like the situation with Ashoka, when Ashoka converted to Buddhism after killing a lot. So same happened with Paul, and Paul converted to Christianity. Then he took it as his life mission. And
I'm having a hard time understanding you. Like it's
you're also really glitchy.
Yeah, you're glitchy, and it's kind of hard to hear you.
Okay, let me remove the earphone.
Try to come back, get a different mic, and come back to us, because right now it just isn't working. It's hard to hear you. You kind of it sounds like you're kind of far away from the mic, and you keep kind of glitching in and out. All right, Dirk, can you hear us?
Dirk's been trying to get on the call in for so long, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you guys hear Dirk?
Yes, we
can hear you. I'm going to turn you down.
Yeah,
the mic's sounding really loud for some reason.
Oh, okay.
All right, go ahead. So, what is your objection to the resurrection?
Okay, first of all, Dirk's objection to the resurrection is that you guys paint it as supernatural, and when I say that, what I mean is you guys say that it's causality breaking, right? It's not like a continuation of normal causality or natural processes, right? Is that your argument?
I would not say
So
it's
we know-
causality breaking. It's not causality breaking at all. No.
I
So,
also deny
okay.
the supernatural natural distinction too. So
Okay, so well, we have to clarify what you mean by resurrection. Then, do you mean that if it's not causality breaking, then you're suggesting that that's a thing that could generally happen to anybody, right?
It's possible.
yeah,
We believe that there will be a general resurrection at the end of time.
Okay, so do you guys think that death is like a light switch where it's like on off? You're alive, light switch goes off, you're dead, all your body functions shut down.
Yeah.
Sure, in the simplest sense, yeah.
Okay, so if a person dies, their organs can still be harvested at room temperature up to 3 days later. You guys aware of that?
Okay.
Okay. So when we say Jesus died, are you taking the 1969 position of brain death, the 1968 position of heart death, the Roman understanding, which is a cessation of breathing, or are you using the Jewish Hebrew law, which is 4 days dead?
I mean, I'll just say brain death for the sake of argument. His brain had stopped working.
whatever the
Okay.
strongest definition you got. I mean,
Yeah, he was dead.
He was crucified. He was stabbed. He was whipped, flayed, all this other stuff.
Right, but that's the whole issue here, because when you guys go he's dead, what you have to understand is that the body continues to function absent being exploded or burned up. Your body continues to have cellular function. So you guys pointed to brain death, which means technically the rest of his body could come back. You're just saying that for him to regain consciousness requires some what exactly then?
Well,
what are we talking?
I'm going to do something a little weird here, and I'm just going to grant what I think you're trying to imply, which is that Jesus didn't die in the sense that you want to say. And I'm just going to say something like this. Let's just say whatever definition of death you want to go by, let's just say for sake of argument, he doesn't meet that condition. The thing that happened still is that 3 days later, he was fine and walking around and eating with people and all this other stuff.
Right. So, but what are we talking about? What is the miracle that caused that to happen outside of he regained consciousness? Does that make sense? Outside of somebody.
So if Mike took a whip and just went to town on me,
okay,
and put me on a cross and stabbed me, and I'm on there, it's just bad, bro, right? Like, and then 3 days later you see me playing football with some friends. Are you and then you hear like, yeah, that a miracle happened with Than. Somebody prayed for him, and you know, he's good now. Are you going to just kind of wave that off?
I'm not waving anything off. What I'm saying is that up through like the 1700s or 1800s, people put bells on their cemeteries because a lot of times people would be ruled dead, but then they'd start ringing their bells and they'd be dug up. And so that's all I'm trying to parse is these things happen. And when you talk about Jesus being scourged, are you under the impression that Jesus is the only person who gets scourged in this event?
No.
Okay. The two people on either side of...
Let's just try to make things a little more explicit here, right? Because it seems like you're just trying to make the argument that Jesus did not actually die. Therefore, he did not actually rise from the dead, right?
Well, what I'm saying is that he died according to certain definitions. But when we talk of death, like absolute death, that's the point at which a person cannot come back. Do you understand that? So when I'm saying he could have died under.
Hold on, that's a major issue right there. You're making something called a nomological claim right there, right? Nomological stuff just has to do with the laws of nature, right? So yes, like nomologically speaking, you cannot. It is nomologically impossible to come back from death, right? But that does not mean it is logically impossible to come back from death, right?
Well, okay. It's about the definition. So it's not that, because you guys have this understanding that Jesus died, everything ended, and it's impossible for him to come back 4 days later. What I'm saying is under Jewish law, they believe that, and I'll even point to Jesus for this, that you are not dead until the fourth day. And that's not unique to just Hebrew people. That's also the Native American understanding, is that it takes the 4 days for a person to be dead. Until the fourth day, somebody can come back. And I'll point to Lazarus. Jesus explicitly waited until the fourth day because that is when the Hebrew people believed that somebody was dead. Prior to that, it is absolutely plausible and common that somebody who is believed to be dead would come back. That's the point of the fourth day.
The fourth day, it was the third day. Just so
exactly. Thank you for making my argument.
So Dirk, do you think that like if we transported the Second Temple Jew to today and they watched somebody get shot in the head with a shotgun or something like that, they'd wait for 4 days to proclaim him dead?
That's the Jewish law. Are you suggesting that we should go by a different standard than Jewish law? So again, that's what I'm saying. If somebody, hold on.
Dirk, wait, you understand that death is not a rigid designator though, right? Like you can have a legal understanding of death.
Right.
And then you can have like a descriptive understanding. So for instance, like you could have a legal definition of murder and you can have a moral definition of murder.
Okay.
So we can have a biological understanding of death, which is what the Gospels are talking about. And then you can have the Jewish legal understanding of death.
No, hold on though. That's a problem. That's a huge red flag because Jesus is working within the Jewish understanding. You can't just say Jesus is all about a Jewish history, and then now all of a sudden we're flipping to 1969. You know, he got blasted in the face with a shotgun. That's not what happened. He did not get blasted in the face.
So do you think that the Torah was like this do and do not do list that was like strict and like the universal, no interpretation, nothing like that?
What I'm saying is that specifically the 4-day rule is the rule that Jesus himself identified by resurrecting Lazarus.
Okay,
so
this is so irrelevant. Let's just are you literally saying that Jesus was sleeping in the tomb or something, or that this Jewish belief that they didn't really die till the fourth day was in effect, and that somehow Jesus survived the crucifixion? Because regardless of what Jews thought, there still are natural laws, and Jesus died when he was on the cross at the end of the
at the end of the day, you guys haven't shown that. We haven't even talked about the mechanics of it yet. Right now, I'm talking about what constitutes death. If you want to get into the mechanics of what happened on the cross and a better explanation for what happened, then we can get right into that. But what I'm saying right now is that we have a 4-day window, and you guys are trying to collapse that into an immediacy sort of thing that he dies.
Wait. Hold on. Correct me if I'm wrong. What is the source for the 4-day rule, by the way?
Well, first of all, the source for that is the Talmud, but
which Talmud?
Why I'm in my car, guy. I don't have it, but that it's a common one. But
it's
I point
the
to
Babylonian
Jesus.
Talmud. It comes 600 years later.
Yeah.
Okay, but see that doesn't mean anything because here's why, and I'll explain this. You can't say that the Hebrews had an understanding of things until Jesus came, and now we don't have to listen to anything that they have to say. That's not how it works. They still have implicit ownership.
You're quoting from the Babylonian Talmud, which comes 600 years later.
Right, but what you're trying to say is that means that it was not in effect when Jesus was there, and I pointed to Jesus himself.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying for your argument. I'm saying for your argument to go, you're going to have to give us some reason to think that it was a thing back then.
I am. I pointed to Lazarus like 4 different times. Why do you think Jesus waited until the 4th day if that wasn't a Hebrew understanding? Why did he do that?
To the point, though. I mean,
Wait,
Jesus
wait.
died on Friday. Jesus died on Friday. Are you seriously contesting that?
I'm talking about what death is. You think that when you say he died on Friday, I can say, yes, he died on Friday, but that does not mean that he is incapable naturally of coming back. That's not how it works.
Because the swoon theory is the most ridiculous theory when it comes to the crucifixion. And
I'm not arguing swoon theory. I'm not arguing. And I'll tell you another thing about that. When you guys point to secular arguments
is your argument just something like there's a Jewish because mind you, this is not found in Torah.
Yeah.
So like this isn't actually going to be binding in a divine sense to a Jew. So like,
if you're not arguing,
what's the argument?
We have no idea what you're arguing too. Like we have no idea what you're trying to say here.
Why I'm saying that Jesus was not in a state of absolute death. However, according to Romans or some other people, yeah, he was, because you guys are trying to say he's dead, therefore he cannot resurrect outside of some divine action. And I'm saying that is not medically how things work. That's not naturalistically how things work. And you are absolutely, Mike, you are absolutely trying to say he was dead. There's no way around that, but you're not understanding, according to your own understanding, that death is not an absolute thing within that time frame.
Wait, what does this have to do with the 4-day Jewish law thing? Because what you just said has nothing to do with that now.
Yeah, well, it does, because Jesus came back on the 2.5 days, the 3rd day, if I want to grant you the sunrise, but he was only in the ground. Before you Mike, get your head out of your hands and listen for a second.
Wait,
because I'm trying. You're not making sense. That's the problem.
I'm making plenty of sense. Jesus said that he's going to give the sign of Jonah, which is 3 days. Jonah did not die. It's very simple. Jesus explains it.
Jonah died.
Jonah dies.
Did not die.
He did. Yes, he went down to Sheol.
In Jonah, he is in Sheol, the grave.
Yeah, in Jonah too.
No, he's in a whale.
No, he's not.
Okay.
I really need him to remake that video for our channel, Mike.
Okay.
Wait.
Okay. No. We don't know what you're arguing. Okay, so are you saying Jesus physically did not die? Not according to what people believed at the time. Are you saying Jesus did not physically die on the cross? Yes or no?
If that's what you're arguing in an absolute sense, I'm saying no, but he died in an understanding. It's very simple. So I'm not saying all his bodily functions stopped. That's what you're trying to suggest. Now, let's get to it, because you know what you're going to do? This always goes down into tamponade. So let's get right into the tamponade, right? Because what you're suggesting is that when the spear went into him, that proves he had acute myocardial tamponade, right? Here's the problem with that. The spear, the cutting of the heart is what causes it. That's what causes it. I looked up information on tamponade from sports-related injuries. I looked up 71,000 cases, guys. You can look this up. Not a single individual got tamponade from sports-related injuries, which is similar to the hazing he got, without a pre-existing heart condition.
What about being stabbed in the heart?
That does not prove tamponade. That's what I'm talking about, because that is.
Can you survive? Can you survive being stabbed in the heart? And
that's what we're getting. We don't know he was stabbed in the heart. He was stabbed and fluid came out. You guys argue that's evidence of tamponade, not pulmonary edema.
I'm going to ask,
which is completely different.
Okay, Dean.
Did Jesus die on Friday? Did Jesus die on Friday? Yes or no?
According to the understanding, but not the Hebrew understanding. It's very simple. You guys are, according to...
So according to the logic of your argument, right, we can't count Jesus as dead because oral Torah, which is not the same thing as divinely inspired written Torah, dictates that somebody's not dead until 4 days. And so,
because that's the cultural understanding that Jesus
okay,
is playing to.
look,
Correct.
I don't care.
no,
I don't care.
because
I don't care
bec-
at all the cultural
wait, hold on.
understanding. This has nothing to
on.
do with the topic.
All right, well then prove that.
Dirk, there's a difference between a cultural legal definition
So stupid.
and the culture still acknowledging that somebody's dead. Like again, don't shake your head at me. This is pretty simple, right? Like, this is really simple. How many?
No, because that's how you affirm it. You write it when you're going. All right, the doctors.
All right, get off my stage. I'm done. This is a waste of time. Let's not even. I'm sick and tired of even entertaining him. He's not saying anything. He's not even answering direct questions. We're not even getting to the resurrection. Well, they wouldn't have considered. I don't care what they would have considered. He was dead on Friday. Period. End of story. By any definition, with anyone with basic common sense. Sick and tired of entertaining that nonsense. When Than speaks, I just listen to things about epistemology, and he's always based. Jay Dyer said the God of classical theism describes isn't personal, can't be incarnate, but be in creation, and we shouldn't argue for him. I'm confused. That's the difference between theistic personalism and classical theism. And classical theism tries to classify God as something other, not as a person, not as a being. He's beyond being. So I guess that's what Jay would be arguing, but I don't know the context.
Yeah, I'd have to see the argument.
How does original sin work in Unitarian belief? Depends. Depends on what. I don't see how that connects to the two things. The second coming is specifically Jesus coming on the clouds, and other appearances, physical or not, would not be considered the second coming. Cool. Than, there was a good chance that was resurrection expert Alice Vanity. Who was this?
I'll fill you in later. It's
Okay.
just it's yeah.
Whatever. I don't even know what this is. What heresy is Jordan talking about? Post-ascensionism? Or I don't know, man. It was weird. What do you guys think about precept apologetics? We don't use it. We're not really into that.
Yeah.
Paul set himself up for fact-checking, saying he knows some of the 500 witnesses. Since Paul was delivered that creed, that means either Christians also mentioned the 500 and could be fact-checked.
Yeah. Or you could just be Giga Chad and defend gospel reliability and take the max data case.
It's true. Very true. Mary Zootmas Eve. Hope you all.
What's Zootmas Eve?
It's tomorrow is the day of the El Zut because it's 1:30. One guy, 30 men.
Oh my!
So tomorrow's the day of the El Zut. Yes, you got to keep up on these things. The resurrection doesn't violate any natural law. Second law of thermodynamics only applies to closed systems, not open systems where agents act upon us. Exactly. Yeah, well said. A scourged, crucified body is dead within hours. Exactly. And I have a video on this I did like a year ago, just debunking the swoon theory, just for the hell of it. All right, let's bring XYZ back in here. See if we can hear you. Go ahead and unmute yourself. XYZ.
Hi.
Can you hear us?
Am I
Hi.
audible?
Yeah. So what's your objection to the resurrection?
Yeah. So my objection is that so I have a theory like the disciples, not the disciples, there were early Christians who believed that Jesus rose from the dead. Then Paul were murdering them. Not only Paul, the Jews. Then Paul converted to Christianity by some hallucination or something like that, and thus the Christianity started.
So
That's my theory.
did the disciples hallucinate?
I don't know about whether the disciples saw said Jesus or not.
Okay. So then why? So the consensus is that the creed of 1 Corinthians 15 was developed because the early disciples, the group of them, claimed they saw the risen Jesus. So they had to experience something, as Paula Fredrickson said. Do you agree with that?
But how can we don't have anything written about them? So maybe Peter's. I can say Peter believed. Peter and uh, Peter, only Peter and John maybe believed. That
Okay, so
thing I
where are
know.
you getting that idea from? So where are you getting this idea that Peter and John would have believed?
It's also from Paul's letters, like both were in their letters of Paul. So maybe that's true.
We don't know what you said. Your mic was making a bunch of noise.
In the letters of Paul, we can see them Paul visiting Peter and James, the mother of Jesus.
Okay. So
yeah.
So they had appearance. The creed in 1 Corinthians 15 lists a lot more. It says he appeared to Cephas as well as all the disciples.
No.
500.
How can we know whether they have appearance or whether they are lying?
Okay, well, why would they lie? Let's talk about the possibility of them lying. This is something that's rejected by scholars today.
No, maybe they are tired of the Jewish religion and wanted to start a new religion.
So basically, you're asking them to be abandoned by all of their families and partake of something that would have got them persecuted. No. Yeah, because this is the Jewish religion was essential to their identity. This is what made them who they were. I mean, you're basically asking them to. They just got tired one day and decided to invent a new religion. Is that kind of what you're getting at? What would be the assumptions to justify that?
No, but we always have outliers, people, right? Who does not take part in religious, or they have their own ways. That does not mean every citizen in the country is devout nationalist or something like that.
So what's the evidence for that? So this is a claim you're making. What is the actual evidence that's what took place here? Like what sources are you using? Where are you getting this idea from? You need to have evidence to support it.
No, so my question is, what evidence do you have to say the opposite of that? Like
the evidence we have, I can go over it again. So we gave stuff in the beginning here. So we have early creed in 1 Corinthians 15 that shows that within a few years of the resurrection, they were proclaiming Jesus rose. This was not what people actually believed in the Jewish culture. They did not believe that there was going to be a dying and rising Messiah that was going to come back. This was rejected by them. Other messianic figures like Judas the Galilean or Theudas, they were supposed to be military figures. So this is something that is completely divorced from the background culture in terms of what they believed. So they're pronouncing this. The eyewitnesses are pronouncing this very early on. Then we go over the data that shows that hallucinations, the idea of multimodal hallucinations, the idea that they would have seen and heard Jesus, as we see in the early sermons in Acts, as well as in the Gospels, are not backed by science. People that experience these tend to know they're having hallucinations, or they have them in one mode, as Nick Meter has pointed out. They don't. So this idea that hallucinations can explain this almost becomes a miracle in and of itself. You have to posit group hallucinations that are multimodal.
No, I am saying only Paul has hallucinated. I don't know about Peter or the disciples or the early Christians, what they saw or did they even saw.
Okay, so what's the evidence for that? Because he cites a creed he got from others that scholars date to within 3 years of Pentecost.
Oh, so still it's belief, right?
What?
Still it is a belief.
You're glitching. I can't even understand you.
Still it is a belief.
It's a belief, yeah.
Yeah. But that does not prove that Jesus rose from the dead.
Correct. It doesn't prove it. It makes it more probable that he did.
No. So just because I give you a creed or some, if like it is like saying some Islamist told to give the Quran, now they stopped believing Jewish and converted to Islam. So that is not the same thing.
So then my question is when I start giving you data, what is going to be the best explanation for that data? So we know, for example, people very early on were reporting the resurrection based on the creed.
If you say that,
so how do you explain that?
Wait, I want to add a little clarifier really quick too. Sorry. There's a difference between saying they believe Jesus rose from the dead and that they believed they saw the risen Jesus. Does that make sense?
Okay. No, can
So
you
these
repeat
people
that?
believed they saw the risen Jesus and
Okay.
testified to that.
No. So what is the evidence or data for that?
For what?
So
That they saw the risen Jesus.
Do you have people that are testifying that they saw the risen Jesus?
I don't know.
we do.
We do. Right. You have people testifying to have seen the risen Jesus in a hostile environment immediately after the alleged event.
Like who?
Where they anticipate a hostile reception. Included in the testimony is embarrassing details.
No, testimonies of whom?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to grant me the max data case or something like that and gospel reliability, we got about 21 unique eyewitnesses. So we got, let me pull up a slide real quick here. Where is it?
XYZ, have you read any books on the evidence for the resurrection at all? Because it sounds like you're very, very new to this.
I am currently reading the Cold Case Christianity.
Okay.
That's
good start.
But I see a lot of making up stuff in this. So that's
so you asked about the witnesses. The Gospels, the New Testament in general, records the following. Okay, you have Peter, James, the brother of Jesus, Paul, John, son of Zebedee, Thomas, Andrew, Philip, Matthew, James, son of Zebedee, Thaddeus or Judas, the son of James, Simon the Zealot, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, mother of James, Salome, Cleopas, the Emmaus companion, Joseph of Arimathea, Nicodemus, Barnabas, and Stephen.
No, but these are written in the Gospels. We cannot know that it is right or not.
Say what?
So these are written in the Gospels, right?
They're written in the Gospels? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
But those Gospels are after 30, 40 years.
Okay, let's just grant that for a moment. So what?
So we cannot know if Peter, the so-called people are there or not, whether if they are making this stuff up or not.
Okay, so again, why are they going to make this stuff up in a situation where the environment would be hostile to the story that they're saying? They have nothing to gain from this. They're enduring suffering. They anticipate suffering, they endure suffering, and they keep doing it.
Yeah, but that is also, how can we know that they are suffering, or later they made up the case that they are suffering?
Do you want to? You're going to say that they made up the idea that they were suffering?
Yeah, maybe.
It sounds like you're treating the Gospels as more skeptical than even some of the most critical scholars are going to treat it.
Like, it is one-sided book, right? We don't know the.
I mean, you just have Paul, right? I mean, in an honor and shame society, you have Paul, who talks about persecuting Christians, and then becomes persecuted.
It's a logical thing. Yeah. The persecution is a logical thing. Like, if you proclaim Christianity in a Islam society, you will be persecuted for this. That's nothing. That does not make the fact that Jesus rose from the dead.
You're getting really glitchy again.
Yeah. Honestly, man, I think you're asking a lot of really good questions, but it sounds like you just don't know the data yet. So what I would encourage you to do is read some, check out some books. A great book, if you really want to go in depth, is by Mike Licona, called The Resurrection of Jesus. I'll show it to you here in a second. Why don't you check out that book? and then read that, and then let's talk more in the future about this, because it just sounds like we're on different pages. I think it's over here. There needs to be more in terms of what's going on. Here it is.
What's the name of the book?
Right there. The Resurrection of Jesus by Mike Licona.
Okay.
This is going to be the probably, it's going to cover a lot of details that will hopefully give you a good introduction to all of the data we use. So check that book out. Try to study this more. It just sounds like there's a lot of just misconnections happening here, but appreciate you coming. So Jesus was stabbed through the heart. He survived that. Yeah. How did he? Freaking weird arguments. Not swoon theory, but definitely swoon theory. Did he look up every sports injury, but no scourging or crucifixions? He was physically dead. Thank you. Absolutely correct there. Dirk responds, yes. That was the first time I've heard Roman soldiers, skilled killers who were on torture and execution duty, be equated to what sounds like frat boys just hazing someone. It's like, yeah, it's just the same as sports injuries, guys. It's the resurrection. Oh, that was frustrating.
It is what it is. Oh, what's up, Sword X?
Sword, how you doing?
How you doing? How you doing, guys? Yeah, it's been a long time. Then we didn't have a talk. So last time I think we were on Surah 9, verse 29, and
we're not talking about today. We're talking about the resurrection today. We're not doing that today. Today's the subject is the resurrection.
Yeah, I would like to apologize because I was the one who was reading on the text. It's more detailed than that.
Okay.
We didn't go through detail, but maybe another stream we can talk about it.
Sure.
So yeah, about the resurrection, it's actually irrelevant if I believe it or not, because okay, Jesus resurrected. So what? Why should I believe that that's something very unique? Because I think if I maybe I'm mistaken, did Ezekiel? I don't know if he's another guy. Rose people in the valley of something in the Old Testament.
Yeah, it's an analogy he's talking about, like
so it's the dry bones thing.
Yeah, the dry bones. It's a vision from what I can gather. It's not something that he claims actually happened, but you can find resuscitations in the Old Testament. The difference is that Jesus comes back in a glorified body that's never going to die again, and we actually have evidence we can argue for when it comes to the resurrection of Jesus, unlike the other claims in the Bible.
Yeah, so I'm not much knowledgeable about this thing because I'm just it's not relevant to me. Yeah.
Have you checked out my series on the resurrection?
No.
Well, what would be good is that for you to watch that. If you go to the playlist section of this channel, just go to the resurrection of Jesus, watch that, and then if you want to have a conversation about that in the future, we can do that. But we're gonna talk to some other people about it then, if you don't know this topic that well.
No, I think I have some concerns about the resurrection. If the resurrection is truly happened, why there is no external evidences or sources aside the Bible?
Well, we do. We have Josephus, for example, that says the disciples claim that he appeared to him, and Thomas Schmidt just wrote a whole book about this.
Yeah, the disciples did think that.
But that's an external source, though. That's an external source, though. Josephus is reporting that the disciples were reporting this early on.
All right.
Yeah, it depends on the people of the Bible.
Yeah, basically what you're asking for is why do we not have anybody talking about the resurrection of Jesus that didn't believe in the resurrection of Jesus?
Yeah, because it's the resurrection of Jesus is most significant to that period of time, and if someone resurrects, it would be most sensible that he would just have a gotcha moment to all his enemies and say, "Oh, I resurrected, so you have to believe in me now." And if you don't, you're just an evil bastard.
I mean,
that's it.
Jesus kind of answered this in the Gospels. He says, if they will not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not listen even if someone rises from the dead. And in Matthew 12, he is casting demons out. And what happens? The Pharisees come and say, well, you're doing that by the power of the devil. So like he's doing miracles in front of them and they're still rejecting him. Like, so I would challenge that as well. I don't think that would actually work. I don't think that would jive with
and actually
psychology.
He actually kind of did that anyway with Paul.
Yeah, but with Paul's not that much of an enemy. I mean, when I speak,
The guy that was killing Christians.
Yeah, but not towards him directly. When I speak enemies, it's like Pontius Pilate, Harold.
Well, Jesus, when he appeared to Paul, said, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?"
Persecuting me. What? How does that
Yeah,
work?
that's what he said.
That's what Jesus says to Paul when he appears to Paul.
What does it mean? How does that work? Like
You-
the body of Christianity is
Right.
God,
Paul's
like that?
persecuting Christians, right? And so that is a collective attack on the identity of Jesus as well, is it not?
Mm.
Much like if I was much like if I attack Muhammad, right? Like many Muslims will take that as an attack on them as well, sometimes.
Yeah, but I find this very impossible to trust that. I mean, the resurrection has to have a gotcha moment. It has to have.
I
If
think
you
you're
just
thinking like
walk
a human there. Why would God want to go have a gotcha moment?
Okay, but yeah, to those who already have an argument that you're nothing.
Yeah,
that sounds yeah, that sounds like a human that wants vengeance and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Wants to get
because
even.
I mean, some people didn't believe in him because they were skeptical of this. He's just
Yeah,
a
and he appeared
regular
before
guy
many
that lives
people,
in
right?
some-
So, but I mean, like this
after
is
his death.
Yeah, this is what we've talked about. The creed in 1 Corinthians 15. It's an early creed. It mentions him appearing to the disciples, more than 500 at once, all the apostles.
And maybe he appeared. I don't know what to think about it, to be honest.
Well, we appreciate you coming. I would highly recommend you watch our series on the resurrection, and that will help give you a better idea of what to think about it. But thanks for coming today, man.
I thought we were going to talk about something else, but
Yeah,
maybe the other.
No problem, man. We'll talk to you later. I'm a Christian and I'm watching your series on Genesis, and I've been struggling with theistic evolution and the implications of death and suffering before the fall, when there was no sin, also original sin in Romans 5:12. Well, you're in luck. Watch Genesis 3b of that series, and that will talk about that. So boom, there you go. Miguel, what are those books behind you? Hardcover, one is blue, one is brown, one is green. They all look cool. Catch my eye every time. Well, I don't know.
There's a lot of blue, brown, and green.
Yeah, look there. Can you see them all here? All right, there we go. You saw them all. I'm glad we worked through this together. There. All right, let's bring up one more guest here, and then we are probably going to close this out because we've been going for almost 3 hours. So sorry to everyone waiting in the queue. We're probably not going to have time to get to everyone today. Adriel, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Adriel? Yeah, there
Yeah.
you are. Okay, how you doing?
Good. What about you guys?
Good.
Good. So what's your religious beliefs?
I'm a Christian.
Okay. So you believe in the resurrection then, right?
I do, but
okay.
Whether I believe it in properly or not is a different question. I just came from your channel actually, IP.
Okay.
And I had a few questions.
Well,
if you're willing to take them.
So do you believe Jesus physically rose though?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Are your questions about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're about that.
Give me one question.
I got you. Just give me 1 second. So this has to do more towards Romans 5:12 and 1 Corinthians 15. So I'll give you this proposition here. So 1 Corinthians 15:21-22. For since by man came death, by man also came the resurrection of the dead. For as in Adam all die, so also in Christ all will be made alive. So I was in your server and was having a conversation between the brothers there. And it seems to me that they do not accept that death came through man. And it seems to me that there's some sort of logical conclusion that God made the system in a sense where creatures were always going to die. And I see a problem with that. Well, what do you say about that?
Why would there be a problem with that?
If God created the system where ultimately all his creatures would die without sin entering his creation, you don't see the problem with it?
Well, this is something unrelated to the resurrection. This is something related to death and the fall, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I appreciate you coming, but we're talking about the resurrection specifically. So check out my Genesis 1-11 series and watch the video on Genesis 3. I cover that in that specifically, and that will help you. But it's not what we're talking about today.
Oh, hey.
How you doing? How you doing?
Good.
You do have black hair.
Yeah, that's true. It's my username and all things. Great. So I just had a couple things, but maybe we only have time to go through one. So I've watched a lot of your content, like it a lot. And then I've also watched some, like I try and get both sides. I've watched a lot of, for instance, Apologia's content as well, your response. I see you two go back and forth a lot. So yeah, obviously there are a lot of details that you can go through there on the resurrection. So one thing that I would say though is that both beliefs, like you, Apologia, or any other like hypothesis, are reasonable given the information. Like I think that some Christians go a little bit overboard and say, oh, like it's this stuff here about the resurrection proves like Jesus like rose from the dead. Do you think there's anything in the resurrection like data that we have where you would say, oh, like this like kind of proves that this happened and it's like unreasonable to think otherwise, that this could have happened by this could have a natural explanation?
Do you want me to go, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll answer your question, but I'm going to say this first. I don't really think there's anything at stake with this question. Because like, what does it really mean to be reasonable, right? Like philosophers try to define that, and like it's ultimately like a really trivial thing because it just means like you're at best just like internally consistent with what you're thinking, what your beliefs are, and the logic and stuff like that, right? Reasonableness is not going to be like a high stakes question, if that makes sense. So like, go ahead.
Well, just a quick clarification. I think there's a difference between consistency and reasonableness. Because I think that I thought what you just described was consistency. So you can be consistent in like
consistency is going to be consistency is going to be like a quality or a predicate that you're going to attach to somebody that is reasonable.
Okay, yeah, but yes, consistency does not entail reasonableness, I don't think.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, sure, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying reasonable rationality, stuff like that. It's like it's really low stakes questions, right? Because I can say, yeah, somebody can be reasonable or rational, and given the evidence from the resurrection, like be rational in denying it, or reasonable in denying it, but like nothing really falls out of it.
Well, yeah. So I mean, just as an example, so like if you were to say, for instance, that I don't know, the Chiefs won. You were to make an argument the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year. Like that would be a completely unreasonable thing to say because like there's just like everyone knows the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
I don't know that, but sure.
Okay, sure, yeah. Well, you can look it up. Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. I mean that's like a modern day example, but it's just like if there's so much evidence like that's overwhelming for a certain proposition or position, then it would be unreasonable to think the other side. So like maybe like
I think there's going to be an asymmetry there because the amount of work that needs to be done to like to be reasonable to say the Chiefs won or whoever won. Sorry,
Eagles.
is very different than the amount of work that you're going to be putting in to something like the resurrection, because these debates have evolved.
Yeah, I know the data, like, since it's ancient history, is a lot more sparse, but like,
well, it's also very interdisciplinary. You're gonna get into philosophy, probability theory, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. So, well, my contention is that you can both believe in like your resurrection hypothesis based on the evidence, and I think the evidence could support that. But I think you could also believe in a naturalistic resurrection hypothesis where they like maybe the disciples were mistaken or whatnot. But I know that you argue like in your videos that like, oh no, like this isn't right. And I think you're consistent and you are justified in believing that, and I think you have data to support that. But I think there's data to go the other way as well. So let
me summarize. Yeah, we agree. There can be. You can be reasonable. What we're saying though is it's still not. What matters is what is the best explanation of the data.
I can't hear anything. Just so you guys know, my headphones just died. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah. Well, the question is, what is most reasonable? What is going to be the best? And what we're saying is when it comes to the resurrection, it has explanatory scope. It has explanatory power. Other theories, other hypotheses have explanatory scope and explanatory power. But the resurrection is more plausible and it is the least ad hoc.
Yeah, okay, I see. So you would so what if someone goes through and they find the naturalistic accounts more compelling? Like what's maybe like one or two things you would say like, hey, have you considered this? Because and keep in mind I've watched a lot of your videos and Paul G's responses. So what's like one or two points you'd want to like hit home for me?
Well, what I'm going to say is like, can you explain why we're having group hallucinations reported that are multimodal? If you're going on the earliest reliable sources, we're getting these. Basically, we don't see that showing up in the psychological literature. So now it comes down to like, you're basically positing something that would have to be a miracle in and of itself. You have group hallucinations. They're multimodal. They're auditory, visual, as well. And so that itself, and then they're coming away with a resurrection from that. That itself, almost itself, is a miracle. So like, this is the thing, is that when you start going against the resurrection hypothesis, you got to start coming up with all sorts of ad hoc assumptions. So why did Paul convert? Well, maybe, he was having bereavement or grieving over what he was doing because of trauma in his childhood. Well, why did James convert? Well, maybe the family connection really got to him and he decided to join in with this. Okay, why did they invent a resurrection? No Jews were thinking that. Well, it just was what they had to do to wrestle with the fact that he had died. You see the problem here. We start coming up with an explanation to explain this fact, to explain that fact, to explain that fact. Now we have a problem because we have invented all sorts of new assumptions to account for all the data that can be explained by a resurrection. So quantitatively, in terms of quantity, it's much simpler to posit one resurrection instead of all these additional other assumptions that are almost miraculous in some way, to account for one piece of each of individual pieces of data that are all out there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get that. So that makes sense. But I might open up a whole new can of worms. So I don't know I know you guys have been on for a while and might want to end, but then this kind of reminds me of the Mormonism with the three witnesses, Oliver Cowdery, David Whitmer, and Martin Harris, who all like testified, signed affidavits stating they saw Moroni give the golden plates to Joseph Smith. And like, there's a lot of history there and it's actually pretty impressive.
Now, here's my response to that. Typically when it comes to an atheist, okay, that's a conversation we have to have with Mormons, but you're conceding that there is definitely miracles happening now. The question is, was it one or two? So that doesn't debunk the resurrection. It just means that maybe there's more miracles that have happened.
Well, if I accept the resurrection miracle, like on those grounds that you that you just gave, then it would seem like I would also need to assume like, and the data is I think it's pretty strong for the Mormon resurrection. And I'm not a Mormon, by the way, I'm an atheist. But then it would seem like I need to accept the miracles from the Joseph Smith and the three witnesses as well. Because they both seem to be very strong in the ways that you were describing.
Yeah. At the risk, I just got to hearing you guys again like a few seconds ago. So sorry if I'm not tracking. But this is where I don't know if you were listening earlier, but this really, at the end of the day, all boils down to epistemology again, right? And how we confirm theories and all this other stuff. And the two things I'm just going to say to the Mormonism thing is, one, I don't think that the force of the evidence is actually nearly as strong as the force of the evidence for the resurrection.
Yeah.
And two, I think that the prior probability of Mormonism being true is extremely low relative to the prior probability of Christianity being true.
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
And like, obviously, I would have arguments for that, right? I'm just kind of being
right. I get it. Like Bayesian priors. I majored in philosophy too, so yeah.
Oh, based. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I know about
so I mean, yeah, we could like we would have a case against the whole Mormon appearances if we would say the evidence is not on the same level as the resurrection. But in terms of talking with someone presenting a naturalistic hypothesis, they're just acknowledging that the naturalistic hypothesis isn't actually working, because they have to go, whoa, what about other miracle claims? Well, that's just whataboutism at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I was just trying to like find consistency within what you were saying, because the reasons
I totally appreciate that.
Like, okay, well, those can kind of be applied to Mormonism as well. And I know you two aren't Mormon, but then you answered like you think underlying data and like certain details support the like just original one 2,000 years ago more than the Mormonism one. Okay, yeah, I mean that's probably good. I think that what would you point me to? Because I've seen a lot of your videos. Or do you have any books or like maybe a video I haven't seen yet where you think you offer the strongest case on, or the strongest case? Because I like reading about this stuff.
We're doing another series on the resurrection. So I just wrote the script for why the resurrection belief was early. Than's going to write the one on Jewish messianic expectations and resurrection. So the next video that's going to come out will be in March. It's on why we know Jesus predicted his death and resurrection. So we're just starting to build that. But there's two good books here. Resurrection of Jesus by Mike Licona. The Resurrection by Nick Meter. That's a shorter version. Nick Meter's a psychologist. So there's that.
Great.
He's also a Bayesian, since you sound like you're familiar with Bayesianism. So I think you might like his book.
Right, exactly. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Cool. Before I go, just one thing. This isn't about the resurrection, but I like your talks on the critically going through Islam with you and David Wood. Really made me. I like learning about it, but that doesn't seem great to me. But that's
what we want. We're trying to keep as many people as we can out of Islam and get people out of that religion. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean,
I was going through it with my friends. Good.
No, I was just going to say, because I'm assuming you're either like an atheist or agnostic or something like that. And
I'm agnostic. I mean, I like learning about religions, though. Like I listen to your videos, I read, and everything. I mean, and the thing was, I was raised Christian. I left 3 or 4 years ago, and I actually want to go back. I'm just trying to find ways to convince myself, ways to believe again.
Based on my observations, doing what I've done for so long, it's people in your position that I think have the hardest time, because I wasn't raised a Christian, and so me going into Christianity, I didn't have a bunch of beliefs about Christianity to undo in order to go into it. Where it sounds like for you, there's some things that you didn't believe probably, and then you became an agnostic or atheist now, and there's still that thing in the background, I guess, where it's this is how you grew up. Yeah, it's tough. But are you on a Discord server?
No, I don't think so.
All right, yeah, you can join us too, and then whenever I have free time, I try to talk with everybody in there here and there. I don't really get into the nitty gritty too much. But
yeah, the link is below, by the way, in the video description if you want to snag that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll check it out. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Try to find a good church to go to. I'd recommend if you want to get back into this. Start looking around.
Okay, yeah. Church, yeah. I mean, that's also another thing. I mean, I know this doesn't have anything to do with epistemology, but I had a very negative experience in churches or church when I was growing up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that could have contributed to maybe an epistemological
a psychological way.
I don't know if I want this to be true or not. Maybe I don't want this to be true. So maybe if I had more of a positive.
No, I can tell you from my own experience, I've had moments like that too.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Yeah, I'll check out the Discord server.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Catch you later, man.
Yeah. Later.
All right, let's do these. Let's do these last couple super chats here. No, I really need to know the 3 hardcover books. Oh, this one. Oh, these are Gary Habermas's books. Oh, he says somebody helped him. Okay, yeah. There's some problems with him. I mean, you can get them. I think there's some good, interesting data in here, but do fact check everything he says. That's how I would use it. All right. Sorry for everybody in the queue. I know we've got like 10 people in there, but we usually do these for 3 hours and then we usually close out. So we will do another one next week if you guys want to come back to that one. Thanks for coming, everybody. Anything you want to say before we close out, Than?
No, I'm very, very gassed because I'm still sick right now. So
yeah, Than's exhausted. He needs to get a nap. So anyway, thanks for coming, everyone. We will see you guys next time. Sorry that we couldn't get to everybody. We've been going for about 3 hours, but yeah, that's just fortunately the nature of the beast. If you want to talk more, just join the Discord. For any of you in the queue, just join the Discord below and we can talk to us there. So all right, we will be I'm traveling. So I am traveling to DebateCon this weekend. If anybody lives in the Houston area, wants to come to DebateCon and see me this Saturday, just Google DebateCon 7 and come out for that. And after that, we'll be live again Monday. We'll see you guys next time. You made it to the end of this video, which means this message matters to you. If you want to see more content like this reaching people for Christ, you can help make it happen. Your support makes these videos possible. Click the link below and donate today. And if you want to go even deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You'll get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes content, and a place to connect with others passionate about this mission.